Chapter 1327. Setting foot in the Serpent God Hall, Jian Chen and Tai Ta pursued Tao Jingtian. Meanwhile, the main entrance of the Octaterra Divine Hall in the territory of the Turtle Clan opened up. With the Saint Kings leading them, a large number of clansmen poured out. It's the ruler. The rulers returned. Fantastic, this is just fantastic. Did you see? Once the ruler returned, even Tao Jingtian was scared into fleeing in such a horrendous manner. He dares not face the ruler head-on because he fears death. Long live the ruler. The ruler is invincible, the group of clansmen said in high spirits. The respect and admiration they felt for the ruler had already reached an unbelievable level. The paleness of the 5 Saint Kings finally eased a bit after holding in their anger for so long. Now that Jian Chen and his powerful friend had returned, they finally possessed the power to deal with the Tao family. They did not need to hide within the Divine Hall and be verbally abused any longer. The 5 of them stared in the direction Jian Chen had traveled off in interest. They all frowned. Odd. Tao Jingtian has been causing a great disturbance, saying he will fight and kill Jian Chen constantly. But now that he has returned, why has he fled without even fighting? Even if they're worried that they're no longer our opponents, they still have a Divine Hall. As long as they hide within the Divine Hall, we won't be able to do anything to them. There's no need for them to flee so quickly, Mocha said in doubt. The others nodded as well. They all felt that Tao Jingtian's actions were extremely suspicious. I know. Tao Jingtian's objective is probably to draw Jian Chen away. He's probably already set up some trap for Jian Chen, Qing Yishuan said with a heavy voice. Her complexion had become very ugly. She had already severely offended the Tao family by participating in the battle against them with the Turtle Clan, so if Jian Chen died, she could no longer stay in the Sea Realm. Suddenly, Qing Yishuan turned to the clansmen behind her. She said, "Everyone enter the Divine Hall. Tao Jingtian's probably set up a trap for Jian Chen. We need to go save him with the Divine Hall to prevent any accidents." The clansmen all revealed different expressions and entered the Divine Hall as quickly as possible. Afterward, Qing Yishuan chased after Jian Chen with Lan Jing, Xian Pian, Mochas, and Tao Dou along with the Divine Hall. Tao Jingtian wildly fled as he carried the Divine Hall. At this moment, his heart violently surged. He was nowhere near calm. He had been frightened by the tremendous presence Jian Chen had released. Just from Jian Chen's presence, he had deduced that Jian Chen was no weaker than him, possibly even much more powerful, because even he shivered before Jian Chen's presence. Other than that, Tao Jingtian could sense that Jian Chen's golden-skinned companion was very strong as well. No weaker than himself either. God damn it. It's only been so long. How has the ruler of the Turtle Clan's strength increased by so much? Tao Jingtian bitterly grumbled inside. The rate at which the ruler of the Turtle Clan was growing had completely exceeded anything he had anticipated. Behind, Jian Chen and Tai Ta tailed him. One of them was reduced to a blur and seemed to fuse with the surrounding space to blink across a very great distance, while the other shone with a dazzling golden light as he shot through the sky like a comet. The 2 of them were slightly faster than Tao Jingtian, so they gradually moved closer. Very soon, they arrived over 100,000 kilometers from the territory of the Turtle Clan. They had crossed the territories of many large clans and caused a very large disturbance along the way. Tao Jingtian, this place is far enough away. I'll make this region of desolate mountains your grave. Jian Chen suddenly yelled out when they arrived at a mountain range. He pushed the illusory flash to the limits of his understanding and his speed skyrocketed. In just a few seconds, he caught up with Tao Jingtian and condensed a sword in his hand with his chaotic force. He stabbed out, "How can he be so fast?" Tao Jingtian was shocked, but he did not respond slowly either. With a boom, a tremendous amount of energy erupted from within him, condensing into a layer of armor in the blink of an eye. A trident appeared in his hand as well as he stabbed out as hard as he could. Boom! Tao Jingtian's trident clashed with Jian Chen's sword and immediately produced a terrifying ripple of energy. It caused the mountains below to collapse. They were reduced to a mess. Tao Jingtian's face changed. With a grunt, he shot back like a broken kite. The trident in his hand dimmed while the armor on him had almost shattered. The sword in Jian Chen's hand remained just as powerful as before, without weakening at all. His gaze was cold, and he said, "Tao Jingtian, your strength remains where it was before. You have not improved at all in the past half a year, so killing me with just that much is wishful thinking." "Why you?" Tao Jingtian was both shocked and enraged. He pointed at Jian Chen in a speechless manner before roaring out, "Just what has happened in the past half a year? Why has your strength increased by so much?" From just that single clash, Tao Jingtian had become filled with fear. He had discovered, out of shock, that after half a year, he was not the ruler of the Turtle Clan's opponent at all. This matter was shocking and unbelievable. Tao Jingtian did not expect Jian Chen to answer his question at all. He turned around and flew into his divine hall, controlling it as he fled. He pushed its speed to the limits as he attempted to reach the territory of the Serpent God Hall as quickly as possible. Jian Chen sneered as he chased behind with Tai Ta. It was impossible for him to not see through Tao Jingtian's scheme since Tao Jingtian had come in such a bold manner to block the main entrance of the Turtle Clan. Even though Tao Jingtian knew he could not do anything to them, but he had still purposefully angered them in an attempt to draw him out. However, Jian Chen was extremely confident after returning from the Xianhuang microcosm. He was not afraid no matter what Tao Jingtian was counting on. So the Serpent God Hall is supporting him. Very soon, Jian Chen understood Tao Jingtian's intentions from the direction he fled. Jian Chen immediately revealed a mysterious smile. "I'll try you this time, Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall. I'd like to see just how powerful Saint Emperors are compared to the Class 9 Xianhuang beasts," Jian Chen thought. Now that he had reached the fourth layer of the chaotic body and reached the sword origin realm in terms of comprehension, his strength had increased a bunch. Even without forging the azulate swords, he was somewhat confident that he could deal with Saint Emperors. Even if he could not defeat them, he was able to flee with his current strength. Jian Chen was not in a hurry to smash Tao Jingtian's divine hall. Instead, he concealed his strength and followed along, continuing to travel toward the territory of the Serpent God Hall. The pursuit lasted for 2 whole days before Jian Chen finally entered the territory of the Serpent God Hall. The moment Jian Chen stepped over the boundary, Tao Jingtian almost began to tear up in joy. He was tempted to roar at the sky. "Ha ha ha, Jian Chen, your end is here. So what about how great your talent is or how unprecedented you are? You're still going to meet your end today." Tao Jingtian laughed out loud. His greatest enemy was finally going to fall before him, so he felt indescribable joy. A supreme energy flowed through the surroundings and behind Jian Chen. An extremely powerful energy sealed up the boundary to the territory of the Sea Goddess Hall, cutting off Jian Chen's path of escape. Chapter 1328. Fighting a Saint Emperor. Jian Chen smiled sarcastically. He glanced back at the boundary behind him and calmly said, "Tao Jingtian, aren't you celebrating a little too early? It's still rather difficult to determine today's outcome." Tao Jingtian stopped and did not continue running. However, he remained hidden within the divine hall. He believed that Jian Chen could do nothing to him no matter what, causing him to chuckle out loud. "Jian Chen, you're overconfident. Do you really think that you can act as you wish just because your strength has abruptly increased? I admit that I am no longer your opponent, but in this vast sea realm, who knows how many people are more powerful than me? Obviously, there are quite a few experts that can kill you. As of now, you are at the gates of death. No one can save you." As soon as Tao Jingtian finished speaking, the energy of the world and the surroundings suddenly became violent as if it had been listening to his speech. A supreme force filled the surroundings. It became more and more powerful and denser, causing the air to shake. Vaguely enough, it seemed to let out the deep, angry growl of a serpent dragon. But Jian Chen ignored everything, as if he could not sense the changes occurring around him at all. Only Tai Ta, who stood beside him, stared at the sky in interest. He was tempted to take it on. His eyes were brimming with powerful battle intent. The war god's blood within him boiled as his body shone with a dazzling golden light. "What happens to me is not for you to decide. However, this barrier has already determined that you will die today for sure." "Tao Jingtian," Jian Chen sneered. Tao Jingtian chuckled because of his rage and bellowed, "Jian Chen, your arrogance and ignorance has surpassed everything I was expecting from you. I'm right here, so if you have the power, come and take my life. If you can't do that today, I'll fill your turtle clan with corpses and make them bleed so much that their blood will form rivers." Heavy killing intent appeared in Jian Chen's eyes. He coldly said, "Tao Jingtian, you will never get that chance. Even if the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall is protecting you, I will kill you. No one can save you." With that, the powerful force around Jian Chen immediately became even more violent. Endless amounts of energy of the world gathered from the surroundings before condensing into a figure in the blink of an eye. The figure was a wide-chested, burly, middle-aged man. His face was blurry and obscured. As he stood there, he gave off an extremely powerful presence, like a monarch ruling the world. Esteemed Hallmaster, please kill Jian Chen and eliminate any future threats. Tao Jingtian also discovered the figure completely condensed from energy in the sky while he remained in the Divine Hall, so he immediately made a request in excitement. It was a clone condensed by the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall by controlling the energy of the world using his mind. The Hall Master did not need to act personally to deal with Jian Chen, since he was not even at the great perfection of Saint King. To the Hall Master, just a clone would be enough to deal with any opponents below Saint Emperor because he was a Saint Emperor, and one that had been a Saint Emperor for many years. He had made a corresponding amount of progress in the realm of cultivation as well. Ruler of the Turtle Clan, I like to see how you kill people before me, said the clone of the Hall Master. His voice was loud and clear, booming out like rolling thunder, like a serpent dragon's roar. Afterward, he pointed his finger at Jian Chen. It elongated and thickened into a pillar of energy as it shot toward Jian Chen. The energy in the surroundings constantly surged into his finger, making the pillar more and more powerful. The great force of a Saint Emperor was hidden inside the attack. Jian Chen showed no fear. He taunted, Hallmaster, just a clone of yours does not possess the ability to stop me. It's better if you come personally. Suddenly, Jian Chen's presence underwent a great change. Like a drawn sword, he glowed brighter. He had already reached sword origin, so his entire body seemed to have transformed into a sharp sword. He then collided with the energy the Hallmaster had shot over with an unstoppable force. An extremely bright white light appeared around him, wrapping around him while giving off surging sword chi. The sword chi caught the Hallmaster's clone by surprise. It was just far too powerful and far too abnormal. He had lived for countless years and read many secret records, so he was extremely knowledgeable, but he had never seen such sharp sword chi. The sword chi Jian Chen used after reaching sword origin was no longer condensed from energy after comprehending the way of the sword. Instead, it was a method to use laws. The clone's attack failed to harm Jian Chen at all. Jian Chen swiftly broke through the energy attack like a sword, having approached the Hall Master. Sword chi condensed in his hand as he stabbed at the clone's head. A sliver of the Hall Master's soul was there, so once that sliver was wiped out, the energy used to condense the clone would disperse. The Hall Master was unable to remain as calm as before. His facial expression greatly changed as a hint of disbelief appeared in his eyes. He had never thought that Jian Chen would have become so powerful already. The Hall Master reacted extremely quickly despite his shock. During a crucial moment, he retreated to several hundred meters away as if he had teleported, avoiding Jian Chen's fatal attack. Although he was just a clone, if the soul hidden within the clone was destroyed, he would still suffer an unimaginable injury. Even to Saint Emperors, injuries of the soul would still be fatal. They were the most difficult to recover from. Jian Chen seemed to have expected the clone of the Hall Master to flee long ago, so he immediately used illusory flash. He left behind a trail of blurs as he chased after the Hall Master like he was teleporting as well. With a white flash, the powerful sword chi in his hand stabbed into the clone's head. This time, the Hall Master's clone failed to dodge in time. His head was pierced and most of his soul was immediately obliterated. Only a small fragment was left to flee into the distance. Jian Chen extended a finger and shot a sword chi a finger wide at the fragment of the soul, finishing it off as well. At the same time, a miserable cry rang through the central divine hall within the territory of the Serpent God Hall. Closely following it was a tremendous presence that radiated out of the divine hall, like a slumbering primordial beast had awakened. It shook the entire divine hall. A figure quickly charged out of the divine hall, storming off into the distance with a supreme presence. It vanished in a single moment, moving extremely fast. It's the esteemed Hall Master. The Hall Master has never appeared personally over the past few hundred years. He's always been in seclusion. That miserable cry seems to have come from the Hall Master. What's happened to the great Hall Master? Has something gone wrong with his cultivation? Just what has happened to the Hall Master? Why has he left in such a rage with such powerful killing intent? Has someone angered him? The various elders and emissaries discussed the situation within the divine hall. They felt utterly confused and puzzled. Even the few esteemed hall elders did not have an answer. Impossible. Tao Jingtian and the 4 other Saint Kings of the Alliance personally witnessed this exchange. All of them became stunned. They were filled with disbelief. A clone of the Hallmaster had actually been slain in such an easy fashion. This was an extremely terrifying matter to them. After all, the Hallmaster was a Saint Emperor, a being who possessed supreme strength. Not to mention the fact that the Hallmaster of the Serpent God Hall was quite accomplished as a Saint Emperor. Just a clone of his was enough to easily slay Saint Kings at great perfection. Chapter 1329. Little resistance, this is impossible. The esteemed Hallmaster of the Serpent God Hall is one of the 3 great experts of the Sea Realm. He can crush someone at the level of a Hall Elder to death just by sending out a clone of his. How has the clone been slain by the ruler of the Turtle Clan? I personally witnessed the strength of the ruler of the Turtle Clan a few months ago. He could only fight even-handedly with me at most. How has he become so powerful in just a few short months? Is the ruler of the Turtle Clan also an emperor? Was he hiding his strength during the battle several months ago? Was that not an energy clone of the Hallmaster, but the clone of a Hall Elder? The several Saint Kings in the alliance within the Divine Hall all spoke aloud. All of their face became extremely ugly. Without any hesitation at all, Jian Chen used the illusory flash to arrive before Tao Zhengtian's Divine Hall after slaying the Hallmaster's clone. The illusory flash was an extremely high-level and profound movement technique. Even though Jian Chen's chaotic body was at the 4th layer, it was still useful to him, and his understanding of it had reached an even higher level back in the Xianhuang microcosm. However, Jian Chen still felt like he had not grasped the highest possible level of the movement technique. It was unlike the heaven-stolen fortune that Jian Chen had obtained back then. Although the battle skill could increase his battle prowess by several folds, the quality of the skill was just too low, making it useless to saint rulers. Boom! Jian Chen struck his palm against the Tao Zhengtian's Divine Hall. Although his palm and the Divine Hall's huge structure did not match up, the Divine Hall rumbled while the whole building violently shook. Jian Chen kept his palm on the Divine Hall as a layer of silver-white sword qi appeared, covering his entire hand. The sword qi clashed with the Divine Hall, producing a series of creaking sounds. The tough Divine Hall quickly became riddled with web-like cracks, extending from Jian Chen's hand. As the master of the Divine Hall, Tao Zhengtian possessed full control over the structure, so it was impossible for him to miss any changes occurring to it. He immediately became ghastly pale from fright. He knew exactly how powerful the Divine Hall was. It could emerge unscathed even after taking on attacks from multiple Hall Elder-level experts. Yet, it had actually cracked before the ruler of the Turtle Clan, which was just far too shocking. Tao Zhengtian was utterly shocked. His earlier confidence had completely vanished. He dared not to stay any longer and was even more afraid of leaving the Divine Hall. He immediately directed the structure to flee toward the central Divine Hall of the Serpent God Hall. Tao Zhengtian, do you still think you can leave now? Jian Chen sneered as the killing intent in his eyes grew heavier. He used the illusory flash and left behind a trail of blurs as he quickly pursued the Divine Hall. The speed Jian Chen had erupted with was far greater than before. He arrived in front of the Divine Hall in a single moment and clenched his hand into a fist. Chaotic force wrapped around his entire arm and surged into his fist, causing it to shine with a dark light. Dazzling, powerful sword qi was hidden inside the light as well. Boom! Jian Chen hurled his fist forward with an unstoppable force, causing the surrounding space to violently tremble. The punch was extremely powerful, and just the single attack blasted the majestic doors open and caused the entire Divine Hall to fly backward. All the clansmen from the clans that had allianced themselves with the Tao family remained hidden in the structure. But the entire Divine Hall violently shook from Jian Chen's forceful punch so much that all the people hidden inside stumbled and almost fell. Even the Saint Kings shook a few times. Oh no! The door of the Divine Hall has been smashed through by the ruler of the Turtle Clan. He can actually smash through this Divine Hall, said a Saint King from the Tao family alliance. His eyes first became filled fear, then slowly despair. The other Saint Kings felt the same way. They had all thought of the outcome. Since the ruler of the turtle could destroy the Divine Hall, it meant that he had already become an emperor. Even if he was not one, he still possessed an emperor's battle prowess. Tao Zhengtian was pale-faced as he piloted the Divine Hall high up in the air before making it quickly fall. He was going to use the base of the Divine Hall to squash Jian Chen. The Divine Hall's toughest parts were the base and its main entrance. The Divine Hall had already become several thousand meters long and wide. It filled the sky like a gloomy cloud, creating a huge shadow. Powerful strands of the divine hall's power circulated around its base, giving off a great pressure. As the pressure increased, the space below the divine hall became filled with ripples. Jian Chen stood beneath the divine hall and raised his head to the sky. A gleam of light flashed through his eyes before he raised a hand. He used just a hand to stop the rapidly descending divine hall. Bang! The moment his hand came in contact with the divine hall, a heavy sound rang out and the divine hall came to a halt. Jian Chen stood in the air as he supported the divine hall with a single hand. He seemed as steady as a mountain, without sinking at all. The true advantage of a divine hall was their tough exterior. They did not possess very many offensive capabilities. As a result, Jian Chen was able to do this with his current strength. After all, he was no ordinary fighter since he was in possession of the chaotic body. His body was extremely powerful. White light flickered on Jian Chen's arm before he suddenly shook it, sending the divine hall into the air. With a tremble of his arm, the tough base of the divine hall became covered with thick cracks, all caused by the sword qi. Suddenly, Jian Chen shot into the air like a loose arrow. He was covered by a layer of powerful sword qi. At that moment, he seemed to have become a sword himself, a sword of endless power. He collided with the base of the divine hall. With a great boom, a hole immediately cracked open where Jian Chen collided with the structure. He had already charged into the divine hall while coated in sword qi, directly making his way up. He smashed through various obstacles and emerged from the roof in the end. He had pierced through the entire structure, producing a clear hole through the entire thing. Tao Zhengtian had been plucked from the divine hall. Jian Chen emerged with his hand around Tao Zhengtian's neck. Tao Zhengtian still seemed to be dazed since his eyes appeared somewhat confused. However, he soon understood the current situation he was in and immediately became astounded. He examined Jian Chen, who was only inches away, in utter fright. Jian Chen carried Tao Zhengtian by the neck as if he had grabbed a chicken. His eyes were cold and filled with heavy killing intent. He sneered, "Tao Zhengtian, I said that no one can save you today." Tao Zhengtian opened his mouth. He tried to say something, but no voice came out since his neck was in Jian Chen's hands. Afterward, blood began to pour out of his mouth. His face became sheet white while his body was drenched in his blood. Jian Chen had injected his chaotic force into Tao Zhengtian's body. The chaotic force of the fourth layer was so powerful that even Jian Chen's third layer chaotic body was unable to withstand it, let alone Tao Zhengtian, who was in possession of a body that was not as tough. Chaotic force rampaged within Tao Zhengtian's body, turning his organs to a mess. All his bones, flesh, and blood suffered from the destruction. His entire body turned into mincemeat. At this moment, 4 figures charged out of the divine hall. They fled into the distance in various directions as quickly as they could. The 4 Saint Kings of the Tao family had sensed that the situation was bad, so they had already decided to flee by themselves. "Tai Ta, stop them for me," Jian Chen said to Tai Ta. Tai Ta said nothing, but he immediately transformed into a golden streak of light in pursuit. He had used the celestial movement of the mysteries of war. It was an extremely advanced technique, far more powerful than the illusory flash. It was a secret technique that only warring gods could learn. Tai Ta actually moved even faster than Jian Chen right now. With a golden flash, Tai Ta had already caught up with one of the people. He heavily injured the Saint King with a casual punch before pursuing the next person. Jian Chen did not take part in rounding them up. The 4 fleeing Saint Kings were all captured by Tai Ta, and to prevent them from resisting, Tai Ta had heavily injured them. "Spare me, ruler. We never intended to become enemies with your turtle clan. We were all forced by Tao Zhengtian," one of the 4 people began to plead. He knew that he could flee today, but he did not want to die like this. Jian Chen was not wavered by his pleas at all. He coldly stared at them and said, "Many of my clansmen have died by your hands. My clan was almost doomed because of you, almost vanishing from the sea realm permanently. Your final fate will be decided by all the clansmen once I return. Thus, the dead clansmen will receive an explanation for their deaths. I will send you all into an alternative space now. If you resist, I'll wipe out your soul on the spot." Jian Chen pulled out the Saint artifact and sent all 5 Saint Kings involved in the alliance into the artifact space. He was not afraid of them causing any trouble since the artifact spirit was there to watch over them. Chapter 1330. Facing against the Hallmaster, 1. Tao Jingtian's divine hall had been pierced and was severely damaged. It was nowhere near as powerful as before. Jian Chen condensed a few sword qi and sent them at the divine hall. Each sword qi was no weaker than an attack from a Saint Emperor, so they sliced the divine hall into pieces, causing it to fall from the sky. There were several tens of thousands of direct descendants and experts from the alliance within the divine hall. Even more branch descendants and unimportant members had been dismissed to avoid the trouble. Now that the divine hall was destroyed, all the people hiding in it were exposed, including several dozen saint rulers. Although the people had no idea what had happened outside, they felt that something was off. Seeing how the tough divine hall had actually broken apart, their thoughts were immediately confirmed. Some people with a faster reaction time began to flee into the distance as quickly as they could, but the saint rulers fled the fastest out of all of them. Jian Chen expanded his soul and enveloped a radius of several thousand kilometers. He used his soul to lock onto the saint rulers among all the fleeing people, and with a few twitches of his fingers, strands of finger-length sword qi shot out. He had produced several dozen sword qi in an extremely short amount of time, slaying all the fleeing saint rulers. The saint rulers were unable to resist the sword qi condensed by Jian Chen after he had reached sword origin. They were all slain by the single strand of sword qi. In the end, none of the saint rulers from the alliance managed to flee. All of their souls were destroyed. Jian Chen did not hunt down the people below saint ruler. His status was different. He was not interested in killing them, and if he killed too many people, he would suffer the punishment of celestial decay. However, the alliance was destined to decline now that it had lost all these saint rulers and saint kings because there were far more experts in the Sea realm than the Tianyuan continent. Without saint rulers or even saint kings watching over them, it would be very difficult for an organization to develop. With a wave of Jian Chen's hand, several dozen space rings flew over. These were all rings that the saint rulers wore. They contained everything the saint rulers had saved up over their lives. It was a very great sum of wealth to the Turtle clan. After that, Jian Chen used his soul to sweep through the divine hall, checking every corner inside. However, he failed to find anything valuable. Jian Chen, the hallmaster has personally come, Taita said with a muffled voice. He looked into the distance. His eyes were filled with a powerful killing intent. Jian Chen had sensed the presence as well even without Taita's warning. An extremely powerful presence was rapidly approaching the area. In the Xianhuang microcosm, I could kill Class 9 Xianhuang beasts, and we even killed a Class 10 one. I wonder how much more powerful Saint Emperors are compared to Class 9 Xianhuang beasts, Jian Chen thought to himself. He felt an urge to take on the Hallmaster. He currently wanted to find a Saint Emperor to test out his own strength. Although he could kill Class 9 Xianhuang beasts in the Xueqi microcosm, they lacked intelligence and special abilities. The experience he gained when fighting them was nowhere near as rich as when fighting experienced fighters. Being able to slay Xianhuang beasts only meant that he possessed attacks no weaker than a Saint Emperor. However, he still did not know his overall strength. This was because Saint Emperors were far more difficult to handle than Class 9 Xuanguang beasts. A Saint Emperor's method of fighting was flexible, and they had also comprehended the mysteries of the world and knew various secret techniques. Their battle prowess could not be compared to Xuanguang beasts that only possessed brute strength. A tremendous pressure surged in front of them, quickly spreading through the empty air. The space it passed by actually thickened like mud. A figure quickly flew over from the distant horizon. He had already fused with the surrounding space and made no sound at all as he flew. He was extremely fast. In less than a second, the figure traversed the several dozen kilometers at an unbelievable speed and arrived before Jian Chen. Immediately, a vast pressure filled the surroundings, causing the air to tremble as the ground below sank. Jian Chen felt his body tighten. His clothes immediately began to stick to his body. At that moment, he felt like he was holding up a huge mountain. It was extremely heavy and breathing became much more difficult. Saint Emperors really are more powerful than Class 9 Xianhuang beasts. Jian Chen shivered inside. This was not the first time he had faced a Saint Emperor, but he had now gained an even better understanding of the strength of Saint Emperors with this. Ruler of the Turtle clan, how dare you? The Hallmaster of the Serpent God Hall was bathed in blue light, only revealing a blurry silhouette. His tone was icy and filled with an unsuppressible rage and killing intent. He had underestimated Jian Chen before and had sent out a clone to deal with Jian Chen. Not only did he fail, but his clone was also slain, causing his soul to become extremely injured. This was a permanent stain to his name as the Hall Master who reigned supreme in a region of the Sea Realm. He was extremely furious over this matter. Jian Chen's chaotic Niden spewed out strands of chaotic force, filling every corner of his body. He activated the supreme defenses of the chaotic body to resist the Hall Master's pressure. He said with composure, "Esteemed Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall, I never thought you would arrive so quickly. I was just unable to hold back just then, so I accidentally wiped out your clone. Even the fleeing fragment was dispersed by me. I shouldn't have caused any losses for the esteemed Hall Master, right?" Sparks immediately seemed to flash around the Hall Master when he heard such an excuse. It was extremely frightening. He angrily replied, "Ruler of the Turtle Clan, you still don't have the right to act boldly before me. Even if your strength has increased, it is still as significant as an ant before me. Since you've set foot in the territory of the Serpent God Hall today, I'll bury you here for all of eternity." With that, the Hall Master extended an arm toward Jian Chen. The moment he extended his arm, it immediately transformed into an elongated serpent dragon's claw and appeared before Jian Chen. "Aren't you saying that a little too early? We still don't know whether or not you can make me stay today, but it'll be even more impossible to bury me here," Jian Chen sneered. Even with his rich experience of killing Class 9 Xianhuang beasts, he still did not dare to be careless while fighting a Saint Emperor. He immediately pushed the chaotic body to its limits and clenched his right hand, condensing a strand of dazzling white sword chi from nothing. He then stabbed at the claw. Ding! The claw and sword chi collided and produced a metallic sound. Jian Chen only left behind a shallow mark on the claw with sword chi. It was not like the damage he had dealt to Tao Zhengtian's divine hall, where he possessed absolute power. Jian Chen was blown away by the strike. He retreated several kilometers before finally dispersing all the force that remained from the claw. He became very stern. From just the clash, he understood that the Hall Master's personal strength was many times more powerful than the clone from before. "What tough claws! My attack barely managed to leave a mark on them," Jian Chen thought. Dealing with the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall was going to be much more difficult than he had imagined. What he did not know was that the Hall Master was flabbergasted. If his face had been visible, Jian Chen would have discovered it filled with disbelief. The Hall Master stared at the droplet of blue blood that oozed out of his palm in a rather stunned manner. He did not return to his senses for quite some time. He was a serpent dragon, so his body was no weaker than magical beasts. His claws were the toughest parts of his body as well as his most powerful weapon. He had fought against people of the same cultivation level as him in the past before he had reached Saint Emperor, and no one had managed to damage them. However, the ruler of the Turtle Clan had actually managed to leave a mark, which really shocked him. Chapter 1331. Facing against the Hall Master, 2. "Why, you've already become an emperor?" the Hall Master exclaims. He felt extremely shocked at that moment. He could still remember when Jian Chen had to flee in an awful condition after he had sent the 4 divine generals after Jian Chen when he had first appeared in the Sea Realm all those years ago. Yet now, Jian Chen had reached a level where he could stand on equal ground with the Hall Master and even harm the Hall Master. It was impossible for him to not be shocked. The Hall Master even began to believe that Jian Chen was also an emperor and had intentionally hid his strength in the past, or that his strength had fallen due to injury, because there was no one who could increase their strength at such a rate. At the very least, he had never heard of someone who could. "No, you're still not an emperor. The energy you used earlier was weird. What is that energy for it to be so powerful?" the Hall Master asked with a heavy voice. His eyes shone as he studied Jian Chen. He discovered what was off very quickly. Jian Chen sneered, "What the energy is not important. More importantly, the energy can harm you." Jian Chen had reached sword origin and could now condense sword chi from nothing. A 2-meter-long sword chi condensed from thin air. It glowed with a powerful white light as it shot toward the Hall Master with lightning-like speed. The sword chi was a condensation of laws, a way. Even though Jian Chen had only gained a basic understanding of it, it was still extremely powerful. When the sword chi shot out, the powerful sword intent radiating from it seemed to influence the surroundings, turning everything around it into sword chi. Standing near it would have felt like standing in a sea composed from countless strands of sword chi. An abnormally sharp feeling could be felt from every direction. This time, The Hall Master clearly observed Jian Chen's process of condensing the powerful energy, which surprised him very much. He had initially thought that it would be extremely draining for Jian Chen to use the energy, or that Jian Chen would even need to pay a certain price. Never did he think that Jian Chen would be able to use it without a twitch of his face, easily drawing it out. The Hall Master became stern. He no longer dared to be as careless as before. A vast energy surged out of his body, making it seem like a ball of blue flames had coated his body. He then condensed the flames into a blue serpent dragon that was several hundred meters long. The blue dragon roared at the sky and the sound shook up the surroundings, causing space to ripple. Even the energy of the world became violent, affecting almost the entire territory of the Serpent God Hall and alarming countless people. It then lunged toward Jian Chen with its huge gaping mouth. Jian Chen's sword Qi was swallowed by the dragon, but the next moment, there was a great boom. The dragon's head was blown into nothingness and even its body cracked apart. Terrifying ripples of energy wreaked havoc on the surroundings, causing this region of space to tremble violently and show signs of collapsing. If this had not happened in the sea realm where space was extremely stable due to the barrier's protection, the clash probably would have reduced the surroundings several kilometers into darkness. Even though the space held together, the barrier-buffed space had almost reached the limits that it could withstand. With a movement, Jian Chen charged toward the Hall Master using the illusory flash, leaving behind a blur. He was emotionless while his gaze was sharp. A powerful, white light flickered in his right hand, fusing with his chaotic force to form a sword that he used to stab at the Hall Master. The Hall Master did not panic in the face of danger. He crossed his arms and created a shield with his powers as a Saint Emperor. He had gained an understanding of Jian Chen's power after testing it out before. Other than it possessing a certain sharpness, it was no different than a Saint Emperor's power. Boom! With a boom, Jian Chen's sword Qi struck the Hall Master's shield, immediately causing it to fill with web-like cracks. It slowly shattered, but it had successfully blocked Jian Chen's attack. At this moment, space suddenly froze, trapping Jian Chen before immobilizing him. This was a Saint Emperor freezing space. The frozen space was far more powerful than any Saint King at great perfection could achieve. Ruler of the Turtle Clan, you've expended that power that's on the level of an emperor. There's no time for you to condense any more of it. I'd like to see how you withstand my attack. The Hall Master sneered as killing intent permeated the surroundings. His right hand turned into a serpent dragon's claw again as it reached for Jian Chen's heart. This was the moment he had been waiting for. He had already noticed that Jian Chen needed to recondense the power every time he wanted to use it. As a result, he had decided to use a shield to block Jian Chen's sword Qi. Then he would attempt to heavily injure Jian Chen before the sword Qi could be condensed again. Jian Chen's eyes exploded with a resplendent light. His entire body began to glow, becoming enshrouded by the light of the sword that protected him. Although he was trapped, there was no need for him to move to condense the sword Qi. All he needed was a thought. As long as his soul remained intact, he could utilize the sword Qi at any moment. The Hall Master struck Jian Chen's protective shield with a powerful claw. A clear screech was produced when the claw clashed with the light, while the light immediately became riddled with marks. However, it was clearly very difficult to block a claw from the Hall Master with just the light. The light was pierced and the claw continued toward Jian Chen's heart. However, the force behind the attack had been weakened after puncturing the protective light. Spurt! The claw stabbed into Jian Chen's body and into his chest, digging out a bloody heart. Jian Chen paled, but he did not grunt at all. Just as the Hall Master's claw stabbed into his chest, his right hand had reached only inches away from the Hall Master. The Hall Master only felt scorn for this attack. What he truly feared was the sword Qi condensed by Jian Chen, because only that could harm him. He did not need to treat Jian Chen with any importance if the sword Qi was not there to assist him. He assumed that Jian Chen's fist would be very powerful, but as a serpent dragon, his body was extremely tough, so he did not pay too much attention to it. Bang! Jian Chen's fist was extremely powerful. It actually created a heavy sound when it landed on the Hall Master's body. The Hall Master's face suddenly changed as he felt a piercing sensation. A powerful sword Qi suddenly erupted through his body when Jian Chen's fist hit him, making him suffer. Chapter 1332. Facing against the Hall Master, 3. The Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall produced a grunt. His body violently shook as a stream of blue blood rolled from the corner of his lips. Blue was the color of his blood. The powerful sword qi wreaked havoc within the Hall Master's body. Not only did it destroy his organs, blood and flesh, it even caused the vitality of his body to quickly leak away. Although he possessed an extremely powerful body, that toughness was only a part of the exterior of his body. His interior was still very fragile. His organs were as fragile as paper before the sword qi that was no weaker than an emperor's power. The Hall Master angrily roared at the sky. His roar seemed a little like a serpent dragon's roar, making tremors form within several 100,000 kilometers. A supreme energy erupted from his body. He was using all the power within him to suppress the sword qi in his body. His left hand turned into a claw that swung at Jian Chen's head. At the same time, he controlled space to restrict Jian Chen's movements in an attempt to wipe out Jian Chen's soul in a single stroke. Although he had taken Jian Chen's heart in the clash, Jian Chen had managed to heavily injure him as well. The loss of a heart was nothing too severe to a Saint King. Another one would grow if they spent some time recovering and ingested some heavenly resources. However, Jian Chen had deposited a strand of sword qi within him, forcing him to use everything he had to suppress it. As a result, the Hall Master was even more heavily injured from his carelessness, making him extremely furious. A layer of dazzling light permeated Jian Chen's surroundings, making him seem like he was enveloped by the light. He seemed like a miniature sun. The protective light was something that Jian Chen had discovered on the way back from the Xueqi microcosm. The light turned his body into something similar to a hedgehog. Not only was he covered with spikes that would injure his opponent as soon as they came in contact with him, but the light also possessed defensive abilities as well. Jian Chen no longer feared a Saint Emperor's ability to freeze space with the light's protection. Just when the space was frozen a second time, it was shattered by the light around Jian Chen. Afterward, he threw out a punch as hard as he could. It was tough and domineering and collided with the Hall Master's claw with a seemingly unstoppable force. Boom! The fist and claw collided and produced a deafening sound. A violent storm of energy brewed in the surroundings, causing the space there to violently tremble. The energy possessed some scattered chaotic force and sword qi. Both the Hall Master and Jian Chen were thrown back. The Hall Master regained his footing several hundred meters away. The blue light around him grew brighter and brighter. He was currently taking advantage of this moment to wipe out the sword qi within him. Jian Chen, on the other hand, only managed to stabilize himself after being thrown back several thousand meters. The light around him had become rather dull, but it soon returned to how it was before. His left hand had become a bloody mess. He was clearly at a disadvantage during the earlier clash with the Hall Master. The blood on Jian Chen's hand quickly vanished and returned to his body through his wounds. Even his injuries began to close up at a visible rate. Even his chest, which had been punctured by the Hall Master, was the same. The chaotic force displayed its terrifying regenerative abilities. It could be used in crucial moments of battle. Suddenly, the energy in the surroundings began to gather from all directions, condensing in the Hall Master's surroundings. The Hall Master had already cleansed the sword qi within him, and now his hands were currently dancing around him. He was gathering the energy in the surroundings to use an absolutely secret technique. The commotion was just shocking. Jian Chen was surprised inside. He could sense that the Hall Master was gathering all the energy in the surrounding radius of 100,000 kilometers. Even with the Hall Master's strength as a Saint Emperor, he needed to do something so tremendous as to use a secret technique. It was difficult to imagine just how powerful it would be. Jian Chen no longer hesitated and attacked first. He used the illusory flash and rapidly approached the Hall Master, using all he had to stop the Hall Master from continuing what he was doing. The Hall Master shot back, avoiding Jian Chen completely. However, Jian Chen relentlessly pursued him as a blur. He was no slower than the Hall Master. The Hall Master was currently casting the secret technique, so he was unable to stop. He could not avoid Jian Chen, so he immediately turned into a half-serpent, half-man monstrosity. His lower half resembled a snake while his upper half remained human. His tail whipped toward Jian Chen at the speed of lightning. Jian Chen did not dodge the attack. He used his sword qi to strike the tail. With a crisp sound, several dozen hand-sized scales were cut off. A deep gash appeared on the Hall Master's tail and blood profusely poured out. However, the Hall Master did not do anything in response to Jian Chen's attack. He continued to use his tail to attack Jian Chen while his hands continued to dance before him, alternating between different hand seals. He continued to cast his secret technique. The secret technique was extremely powerful. He needed to charge it up even when casting it with his strength. This was the first time he had used it as well, and he was actually using it on an opponent who was not even an emperor. The battle prowess and unprecedented talent Jian Chen had exhibited had already caused the hallmaster to feel dread. Jian Chen was fighting a saint emperor without being a saint emperor. If he did end up becoming one, barely anyone in the world be his opponent, so the hallmaster had made up his mind. He would take Jian Chen's life today no matter how dire the consequences would be. Boom! 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 The hallmaster quickly swept his tail toward Jian Chen as a blur. Whenever it struck the ground, there would be a heavy sound. Every single attack was enough to create a bottomless hole in the earth. Dust and sand was kicked into the air, causing the battleground to become hazy. Blood ran from the corner of Jian Chen's mouth since he had been struck several times. He was quite injured, but was still struggling to stop the hallmaster. On the other hand, the hallmaster's tail had become bloody as well. A large portion of the scales on it were gone, having been reduced to a mess by the sword Qi. Tai Ta had watched the battle from afar with brimming interest as battle intent burned within his eyes. He mumbled, "This is also a Class 9 magical beast, but it's even more difficult to deal with than the Class 9 Xianhuang beasts in the Xianhuang microcosm. Fighting against magical beasts with intelligence really is much more difficult than fighting against those without it. I need to take part as well." A dazzling golden light rose from Tai Ta's body as an axe appeared in his hand. He swung it at the hallmaster from afar. The hallmaster was surprised inside. Although he had sensed Tai Ta's existence long ago, he did not pay any attention to it because the presence Tai Ta gave off was only of the 16th star. The hallmaster had never thought that Tai Ta would be a deviant as well, able to exhibit attacks no weaker than emperors with his strength at the 16th star. The hallmaster dodged Tai Ta's attack, which was followed by a flash. The hallmaster's tail was swung toward Tai Ta with lightning-like speed. Boom! Tai Ta was struck in the back and his entire body was blown away. However, he was very tough since he was war god. After taking a blow from a saint emperor, his battle prowess was not influenced, so he quickly flew back to join the fight. He worked with Jian Chen to deal with the hallmaster. Chapter 1333. The serpent ancestor Tai Ta was injured from the first clash, but not only did the injury fail to disturb his morale, it even made the battle intent within him burn hotter. The resplendent light on him became even brighter and more dazzling, illuminating the entire area. The light dyed the sky gold. At that moment, Tai Ta, Jian Chen, and the hallmaster seemed like three miniature suns of different colors. Each of them glowed bright while their radiance illuminated the sky. It was a grand view. Mysteries of war, mortality breaker. Tai Ta yelled out as he radiated with a supreme battle intent that permeated the surroundings. He held his axe with two hands as it exploded with light. Terrifying energy pulsed from it as the surrounding space became very unstable. Tai Ta swung his axe, which turned into a resplendent streak of light, toward the upper half of the hallmaster. He wanted to disrupt his process of casting the secret technique. At the same time, Jian Chen dealt an extremely powerful attack. A 3-meter-long sword Qi had appeared in his hand, shining with a powerful white light before he tore the hallmaster across from him. The attack contained strands of chaotic force. The hallmaster finally became stern. Even though neither one of them had reached Saint Emperor, the battle prowess that both Jian Chen and Tai Ta displayed was extraordinarily terrifying, no weaker than an emperor. It was equivalent to facing two experts of the same level as him right now. At the same time, they were not two ordinary emperors either. Jian Chen's sword Qi matched the power of emperors, but it possessed a sharpness that an emperor's power did not possess, causing it to become even more powerful than an emperor's power in a certain sense. On the other hand, Tai Ta's battle intent could unknowingly influence the souls of people. The hallmaster could not help but waver when his soul was struck by the battle intent. He could feel his morale collapse bit by bit. Other than that, Tai Ta's mysteries of war were abilities that completely surpassed Saint-tier battle skills. They were absolutely horrifying when it came to power. Some of Tai Ta's attacks, with his current strength, were even more terrifying than someone who had recently become a Saint Emperor. The hallmaster's tail surged as it cracked through the air. He wanted to use his tail to stop Jian Chen and Tai Ta. He had already reached the final stages of casting his secret technique. Tai Ta's axe landed on the tail and left behind a vicious gash. Blue blood shot into the air like fireworks. Jian Chen went after the Hallmaster's head from the other side. He was like a streak of light, having pushed his speed to the limits. In the end, the Hallmaster avoided Jian Chen's fatal attack. Although the sword chi failed to hit his head, his body was still pierced. The sword chi emerged from the Hallmaster's back with a dazzling glow, piercing through his chest. The Hallmaster grunted as blood flowed from the corner of his lips. His face had become pale. Another strand of sword chi was deposited in his body, beginning to wreak havoc the moment the sword chi made contact with him. "You're all dead today. None of you will escape here." The Hallmaster bellowed at the sky. The battle was shameful for him. With his status, he had actually been reduced to such a horrible position by two juniors who were not even Saint Emperors. This was not something he could endure. A vast pressure radiated from the Hallmaster in a bold manner, filling the surroundings. Even the experts several 100,000 kilometers away could clearly sense it. The Hallmaster had finally completed casting the absolutely secret technique. A huge serpent dragon soared through the sky. It was over 30,000 meters long and radiated a terrifying pressure. Not only did it alarm countless experts in the territory of the Serpent God Hall, even the experts in nearby regions of the Heaven Spirit Hall and Sea Goddess Hall sensed it as well. All the experts paled in fright as they gazed over from afar. This was because they could actually feel fear forming in the depths of their souls from this pressure. Some of their legs had even begun to tremble, almost causing them to drop to their knees involuntarily. The huge dragon traveled through the sky. Every single scale flickered with light. It roared at the sky and the sound was deafening. It then shifted its eyes onto Jian Chen and Tai Ta, becoming fixated on them. Jian Chen and Tai Ta shivered inside. They both stopped their attacks as they uneasily stared at the dragon in the sky. They had faced against a Class 10 Xianhuang beast before, so they possessed a certain level of understanding in regard to power at that level. They felt like they were facing a Class 10 Xianhuang beast from the presence radiating from the serpent dragon. Several streaks of light shot over from afar with lightning-like speed before stopping several dozen kilometers away. They were spectators watching the battle from afar. They were the Hall Elders of the Serpent God Hall. Every single one of them was a Saint King at great perfection. They had tailed the Hallmaster when he had left and only arrived here just now. This is the Serpent Ancestor. He was the strongest Hallmaster in ancient times, having reached the peak of Emperor within 2,000 years of cultivation. He was only a step away from surpassing Saint Emperor, but unfortunately, he failed to break through within the next 8,000 years. He died with a grudge. The Hallmaster has actually summoned the Serpent Ancestor's deceased spirit using a secret technique so that he can display his former glory once again. A Hall Elder cried out. He was filled with disbelief. He struggled to imagine just how powerful the opponent of the Hallmaster, a leader he respected very much, was for him to resort to something like this. Who are the two people fighting the Hallmaster? How can they force the Hallmaster to use something like that? Are they emperors as well? But that's impossible. There are no other emperors other than the Hallmasters of the Heaven Spirit Hall and the Sea Goddess Hall besides him. The presence and ripples of energies from the two people confirm that it's impossible for them to be the other two Hallmasters. Oh no, the Hallmaster's been injured. His tail has already been reduced to a bloody mess. The esteemed Hall Elders of the Serpent God Hall all cried out as shock filled them. Since when did two great experts like that appear in the sea realm? How could they force the Hallmaster into such an awful position? After all, the Hallmaster of the Serpent God Hall was an emperor who had reached that level of cultivation many years ago. He had traveled a very long distance in that realm of cultivation. The Serpent Ancestor suddenly opened its mouth and sucked at Jian Chen and Tai Ta. Immediately, a terrifying suction force appeared, pulling Jian Chen and Tai Ta off of the ground. They uncontrollably flew toward its mouth. They could not break free from it no matter what. Mysteries of war. Destruction. Tai Ta bellowed as he began to shine with a dazzling golden light. A supreme battle intent fused with his axe as an invisible energy. He then swung his axe at the Serpent Ancestor. Jian Chen also struck out as hard as he could. Silver-white light enveloped his entire body, and with a wave of his hand, he shot out a 3-meter-long sword chi, cooperating with Tai Ta's attack. However, their two attacks failed to injure the Serpent Ancestor. He was a peak Saint Emperor in the past and had remained like that for 8,000 years. His strength had reached a shocking level. Even if he was already dead, the spirit summoned by the Hallmaster was still extremely powerful. Quickly cut through the surrounding space so the suction will be dispersed through there. It can stop us from being sucked away, said Jian Chen. When he had attacked just before and shook up space, he could clearly feel the suction force weaken slightly. The strength of the serpent ancestor really surprised Jian Chen. He was unwilling to be sucked away no matter what. After all, this was not a mindless Shenhuang beast. It was being controlled by the Hallmaster. Tai Ta did not hesitate to try Jian Chen's suggestion. He immediately struck the space in front of him with Jian Chen. Their attacks caused the space to violently tremble before a few slight cracks appeared. These cracks were effective. They allowed the two of them to break free from the suction force. They then made their way around the serpent ancestor's body on different sides and sent barrages at it with all they had. The Hallmaster had vanished. He had disappeared into the serpent ancestor's body. Although the serpent ancestor temporarily possessed its ancient might because its spirit had been summoned, the person truly in control of the whole thing was the Hallmaster of the Serpent God Hall. Chapter 1334. Yadrium appears clang. Clang. Jian Chen and Tai Ta's attacks landed on the body of the serpent ancestor, but a metallic sound was the only thing produced. Although the serpent ancestor's body was condensed from the surrounding energy of the world by the Hallmaster, the body still possessed some of its former prowess since it contained a sliver of the serpent ancestor's deceased spirit. It was so tough that it had reached a shocking level. Both Jian Chen and Tai Ta were unable to harm it at all. It was like the serpent ancestor from the ancient times had returned, which was extremely terrifying. However, it was still only a secret technique. It was only able to demonstrate a certain level of the serpent ancestor's strength, unable to display all of his might from the past. Although Jian Chen and Tai Ta failed to harm the serpent ancestor at all, they could clearly feel that a vast amount of energy within it was rapidly being consumed. Jian Chen and Tai Ta remained silent as they continued to attack the serpent ancestor as fast as they could to waste its energy. Both of them understood that the secret technique the Hallmaster had cast would break once the energy ran out, and thus, the serpent ancestor would vanish. The Hallmaster, who was currently in the serpent ancestor's head, knew Jian Chen and Tai Ta's intentions. He immediately sneered and said, "This secret technique was personally left behind by the serpent ancestor. It's the treasure of our serpent god hole. I've expended so much vitality to cast the secret technique, so how can I let you break through it so easily?" The serpent ancestor's body churned in the sky. As if it was just far too big, the entire sky seemed to be filled. When it moved, it immediately caused the air in the surrounding area to surge, causing wild gales and a series of crackles. The serpent ancestor moved far too quickly, so the air crackled from static electricity. The serpent ancestor arrived at an altitude of 30,000 meters in the air within a single movement, not too far away from the barrier of the sea realm. Afterward, it struck out with a claw, enveloping a region several hundred meters wide. It locked down that region as it fell toward Jian Chen and Tai Ta with lightning-like speed. When the claw fell, a mysterious energy surged out, causing the space to ripple. Jian Chen and Tai Ta's faces changed slightly. Although they had not become trapped, they felt like they had sunk into mud, where their movements became abnormally sluggish. Even with his protective glow, Jian Chen was affected. The serpent ancestor's claw continued through the air with little resistance from anything. Jian Chen and Tai Ta were unable to dodge, so they had no other choice but to attack the claw as hard as they could since the claw was rapidly approaching them. With a boom, Jian Chen and Tai Ta's attack struck the claw, but they did not prevent it from falling down. In the end, the claw still moved through where they were and viciously smashed into the ground, creating a heavy rumble. The earth violently shook as the mountains became riddled with cracks. It was as if a great earthquake had occurred, spreading for several 100,000 kilometers. The huge imprint of a claw appeared on the ground. It was so deep that it seemed bottomless. Jian Chen and Tai Ta seemed to have disappeared, having been pushed into the ground. Only a huge serpent dragon hovered in the air. A burning golden and white light twinkled from the bottomless pit as Jian Chen and Tai Ta flew out together, bathed in golden and white light. The light was clearly dimmer than before, and both their faces were rather pale. A streak of blood ran from the corner of their lips. They were in horrible conditions, having been heavily injured. A tremendous pressure fell from the sky. The serpent's tail whipped down from above like a bolt of lightning.
Just the pressure of the air it had created was enough to cause the ground to sink.
Every single strike from the serpent ancestor was significant. Jian Chen and Tai Ta separate and dodged as fast as they could. This was a tough battle. Jian Chen and Tai Ta could easily hunt Class 9 Xianhuang beasts in the Xianhuang microcosm by themselves. Even peak Class 9 Xianhuang beasts didn't pose a problem to them. But the Hallmaster was a saint emperor that possessed intelligence, many secret techniques, and rich battle experience. He was far more difficult to deal with than peak Class 9 Xianhuang beasts. Jian Chen and Tai Ta worked together as they fought against the Hallmaster in an intense fashion in the sky. Their battle was extremely destructive. The ripples from the battle wreaked havoc in the surrounding 100,000 kilometers. The ground was reduced to a mess, completely different from how it had looked before. Jian Chen and Tai Ta received heavy injuries several times.
If it was anyone else, they probably would have fallen long ago, but one of them was in possession of the chaotic body while the other was a war god.
They were in no sense ordinary. They were extremely tough, which was why they could last so long and maintain their peak condition prowess. The three of them fought for half a day without stopping.
Even the Hallmaster had become rather exhausted. He rarely ever experienced battles after he had become an emperor, and it had been a long time since he had fought in such an intense fashion.
This infuriated him, but also made him feel extremely helpless because Jian Chen and Tai Ta were just powerful enough. They seemed like they were invincible where they possessed unending vitality. No matter how heavily injured they became, they could endure their wounds while their battle prowess did not decrease at all. Quite a few people had gathered in the surroundings now. The battle between the three of them had alerted half of the sea realm. Not only had the experts in the territory of Serpent God Hall hurried over, there were even people from the Heaven Spirit Hall and Sea Goddess Hall that had come over to watch as well. All the people who had come, without any exception, were Saint Kings.
They all remained several dozen kilometers away, and none of them dared to get any closer because they could not endure the ripples that were created in this battle.
The most eye-catching part of the crowd was a majestic divine hall. It was the Octaterra Divine Hall that Jian Chen had left in the Turtle Clan. Because they were worried about Jian Chen's safety, Qing Yishuan and the others had hurried over from the Sea Goddess Hall's territory in the Divine Hall. The Saint Kings gathered in the Divine Hall watched the three emperors fight their intense battle with great attention. Every single one of them was shocked because they had believed that the Sea Realm only possessed 3 emperors, the leaders of the 3 territories.
However, 2 experts had suddenly appeared and could fight the Hallmaster of the Serpent God Hall even-handedly.
Not only did this shock Qing Yishuan and the others, all the Saint Kings who witnessed this felt the same. Saint Kings at great perfection did not possess this strength. The only explanation was that the 2 experts were emperors as well. At this moment, a similar thought crossed all their minds. Just where did these 2 unfamiliar emperors come from?
Why do I feel like the emperor shining with a dazzling golden light seems familiar, as if I've seen him before?
Tai Do stared at Tai Ta and asked a question out of curiosity. I sense that familiarity as well. He's extremely similar to the golden-skinned friend that would stay Jian Chen's side. Qing Yishuan said in a heavy voice as her eyes shone with interest, as if she wanted to see through the 2 of them. This was due to the fact that both Jian Chen and Tai Ta were enshrouded by a powerful layer of light, making it impossible to distinguish who they were. They only seemed like 2 streaks of light that moved about rapidly. I feel that as well. If that really is Jian Chen's friend, then is the other emperor, Longjing said before pausing.
However, what he had said was enough to cause the hearts of the other Saint Kings in the Divine Hall to churn.
Recurrence of the Serpent Ancestor. Spiritual sacrifice. The Hallmaster roared at the sky. Seeing how he was unable to kill Jian Chen and Tai Ta after so long, he planned on using his final trump card. He would sacrifice the spirit of the Serpent Ancestor to make it even stronger and, hence, deal the killing blow to Jian Chen and Tai Ta in one stroke. He would not be able to remain at ease if Jian Chen and Tai Ta did not die today. Immediately, an even more terrifying presence radiated from the Serpent Ancestor. At that moment, the deceased spirit seemed to have become a bundle of flames as it roared away. The spirit was currently being sacrificed and approached destruction. It's time for you to stop. At this moment, a long sigh rang through the surroundings. Several dozen kilometers away, a slender beauty shrouded in blue light appeared. With a flash, she traversed the distance and stopped before Jian Chen and Tai Ta. She calmly stared at the Hallmaster and said, "In the past, the Serpent Ancestor was supreme. No one among the 4 races was his opponent.
He stood as the most powerful in the world. He was loved and admired by everyone. After he passed away, his spirit remained, always secretly protecting the Serpent God Hall, which has earned him all our admiration. Are you trying to destroy the Serpent Ancestor's spirit over your personal grievances today? You little Yadrium, you have no right to stick your nose in the matters of my Serpent God Hall as a part of the Sea Goddess Hall. The Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall coldly responded, but he showed no intention of stopping. He continued on the path of sacrificing the Serpent Ancestor's spirit. Chapter 1335. Emperor of the Turtle Clan, Kong Tai. Do not be stubborn. Out of all the past emperors in our sea realm, the Serpent Ancestor was the one most worthy of our respect and admiration. He did many things for our sea race in his lifetime and possesses great merit.
How can I watch you destroy his spirit? Yadrium gently replied.
Her voice was calm and without emotion. With that, a vast presence no weaker than the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall radiated from her body.
Terrifying pulses of energy erupted like flash floods and surged through the surroundings. The Hall Master of the Sea Goddess Hall personally struck out. She formed a seal with a jade-white hand of hers and gathered energy from the surroundings. She was casting a powerful secret technique. At that moment, all the spectators focused their attention and became fixated on the sights of the battle. Every single one of them had gazes filled with excitement and anticipation. The two Hall Masters were about to clash. It had already been several years since the last battle between emperors, so it obviously roused everyone's interest. They wanted to see who was weaker. Let's retreat some more just in case we are injured by the ripples of battle, a Saint King suggested while watching the spectacle from afar. He then immediately retreated over 10 kilometers. He arrived at a location he believed to be safe. The other people felt the same. They were already far away enough from the battlefield, but they all retreated a certain amount of distance once again. Even the Hall Elders of the Serpent God Hall did the same.
Yadrium, are you really going to fight me? The Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall's eyes brightly burned with rage. He stared fixedly at the Hall Master of the Sea Goddess Hall while his eyes burned with heavy hatred. He knew that it would be impossible for him to kill Jian Chen and Tai Ta if she wanted to protect the two of them, which was something he was very unwilling to let happen. If he did not eliminate the two of them today, they would become a great problem in the future. The energy in the surroundings gathered in Yadrium's hand before condensing into a silver-white trident. Yadrium wielded it with a single hand and said, I have to stop you to protect the spirit of the Serpent Ancestor from being ended by your hands. Yadrium acted in an extremely decisive manner as she stabbed her trident at the huge serpent dragon as soon as she finished speaking. The trident turned into a resplendent streak of silver-white light as it crossed the space at an unbelievable speed. It shot toward the head of the Serpent Ancestor. Boom! With a loud sound, the Serpent Ancestor's head suddenly exploded, expanding in all directions as ripples of energy. It caused a violent storm to occur in the surroundings. Yadrium's strike was a significant blow, destroying the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall's secret technique in a single stroke. As soon as the head exploded, the Serpent Ancestor's body quickly began to collapse into energy before dispersing into the surroundings. The tremendous body of the Serpent Ancestor was condensed by the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall through a secret technique. Now that Yadrium had dispersed its energy, she had saved the Serpent Ancestor's spirit, preventing the Hall Master from using his trump card. The Hall Master's body was forced out as well. He appeared high in the sky. He was in a horrible shape, having lost his former awe long ago. However, his eyes shone with a vicious and penetrating light and were filled with an endless fury and hatred. Yadrium no longer paid any attention to the Hall Master. She turned to Jian Chen and Tai Ta and only produced an emotional sigh after quite some time. Jian Chen, you've really taken me aback today. I never thought that your strength would have reached such a level in such a short amount of time. Her Majesty really has not chosen the wrong person. I thank the Hall Master for your praise, Jian Chen replied with clasped hands. Although he was in horrible shape, he was brimming with energy. Return soon. There are even more important matters to deal with, Yadrium softly warned him before leaving as a blur with a single movement. She disappeared into the horizon in the blink of an eye. Jian Chen stared at the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall, who was also in a horrible shape, and could not help but sneer. Esteemed Hall Master, you probably never expected an outcome like this, right? You got Tao Zhengtian to lead me into your territory so you could personally deal with me. However, not only have you failed to kill me, you've been reduced to such a horrible shape as well. The Hallmaster's face immediately darkened because of Jian Chen's mocking tone. His chest rose and fell violently. To think that he, a ruler of an entire region, would be mocked in such a fashion today with his supreme status. He felt like his chest was about to explode from anger. However, he also knew that it was impossible for him to slay the two of them in his current shape. Although the two of them seemed heavily injured, their battle prowess was not affected at all. There were no benefits in continuing the battle because he had become even more injured after taking a blow from Yadrium. Tai Ta, let's go. Jian Chen did not stick around. He signaled to Tai Ta before they both flew toward the Octaterra Divine Hall. When the Saint Kings and Elders in the Divine Hall saw that the two mysterious emperors were actually Jian Chen and Tai Ta, all of them became stunned, remaining dazed for quite a long time. Although the Saint Kings had already gained a vague idea of the identity of the two emperors, they still felt disbelief after their guesses were confirmed. The ruler. It's actually the ruler. The emperor who fought against the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall is actually our ruler, an elder said in excitement as his body violently trembled. He began to cry from joy. The spectating Saint Kings were all shocked when they heard what he said. The Turtle Clan had actually given birth to an emperor. That was a matter that could shake up the entire Sea Realm, and from the situation earlier, the other emperor seemed to be on very good terms with the emperor of the Turtle Clan. This was a significant matter. Let's talk after we return. You all return to the Divine Hall first. We'll leave this place right now, Jian Chen said to the group of people. Jian Chen was now like a god to the clansmen of the Turtle Clan. All of them were extremely obedient and followed his orders, all returning to the Divine Hall. With a wave of his hand, the Divine Hall shrank before flying into his hand, no larger than the size of a fist. Afterward, he left with Tai Ta, returning to the territory of the Sea Goddess Hall. He did this because he could already sense that the Hall Master of the Heaven's Spirit Hall had already come and had secretly remained hidden. This was not a good situation for Jian Chen. He had wiped out a clone of the Hall Master and caused him an extremely severe loss. The two of them had already fallen out, so he worried that he would end up working with the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall to deal with him and Tai Ta. If I forge the Azulate swords, I'll be able to deal with them easily even if the two Hall Masters work together, Jian Chen thought. He needed an immortal tier sword to use the sword origin realm to its greatest potential. Without the Azulate swords, it was like he was fighting people with his bare hands. He would always be at a disadvantage. I've already gathered all the materials. I just need to forge the swords next, but forging them will not be easy. I need to make a lot of preparations and enough time. Jian Chen looked forward to the moment when he forged the two swords, but he needed to go to the Sea of Despair with the Hall Master of the Sea Goddess Hall in 3 days. He did not have the time at the moment. Chapter 1336. Renowned throughout the Sea Realm, Jian Chen returned to the Turtle Clan with Tai Ta and the Octaterra Divine Hall, but the spectating Saint Kings did not disperse for a very long time. Every single of them remained there and secretly communicated with one another, discussing the Emperor of the Turtle Clan and how he worked with another unknown emperor to fight the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall. They discussed these matters in an extremely secretive manner, afraid that the furious Hall Master would hear what they were talking about. All of them, experts who had stayed in the Sea Realm for many years, knew extremely well that the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall was someone who had become an emperor long ago. He had already made it a considerable distance within the realm, so they all felt extremely shocked when the Emperor of the Turtle Clan, who had just broken through, was able to fight him even-handedly and even injure him. Although the Emperor of the Turtle Clan had worked with someone else, they were still able to distinguish the strong and the weak even at the same level of cultivation. I never thought that the ruler of the Turtle Clan would have become an emperor. This really is unbelievable. In the history of the Turtle Clan, we only had a few experts at the level of Hall Elders even in our most glorious times. The only emperor of our clan in all of history has been born. I wonder who the other emperor is and how he is connected to the emperor of the Turtle Clan. I never thought that the number of emperors in the Sea Realm would increase by 2 in a single stroke. And now that both of these emperors have gone off to the territory of the Sea Goddess Hall, I wonder if the balance of the Sea Realm will change with the birth of these 2 emperors. The various experts discussed the situation. Before now, there had only been 3 emperors, and they had all ruled in their own region. Now that another 2 emperors had appeared together, the balance of the Sea Realm would definitely shift dramatically. The Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall clearly thought of this matter as well. His face darkened in a terrifying manner. Even when ignoring the threat Jian Chen posed to him, just the appearance of two emperors would cause severe threats to the serpent god Gaul. At the same time, they had fallen out with Jian Chen, so he really did worry a little whether Jian Chen and Tai Ta would deal heavy blows to his authority over the land of the serpent god Hall. The Hall Master of the Heaven Spirit Hall was secretly hiding in the surroundings by erasing his presence. He stared at the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall silently before shifting his eyes in the direction that Jian Chen had traveled. His eyes were extremely profound. I never thought that Jian Chen's strength would increase so quickly. He really is worthy of being called an unprecedented genius. The Hall Master only produced a long sigh inside after quite some time. Jian Chen's speed of growth had exceeded what he could imagine. He knew that it was very difficult for him to threaten Jian Chen now. Since Jian Chen was able to reduce the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall to such a horrible condition, it meant that Jian Chen also possessed the strength to take him on. Jian Chen was no longer the ant of the past. Jian Chen is too close to the Sea Goddess Hall. This is not good, the Hall Master thought. His eyes twinkled a few times before he silently left. The Turtle Clan became lively once again after a few days of calm in the territory of the Sea Goddess Hall. All the clansmen had hid in the Octaterra Divine Hall due to the threat of the Tao family, but now that the threat had been dealt with, all the clansmen could return to their homes. The Turtle Clan was in jubilation today. They were brimming with joy. Every single member of the clan wore a smile. They were extremely happy and joyful, while many of them had begun to sing from the joy they felt. This was because the entire clan knew that their esteemed ruler had become an emperor now, an expert who could stand on the same level as the Hall Master of the Sea Goddess Hall, Serpent God Hall, and Heaven Spirit Hall. Not only was this a great honor for the Turtle Clan, it was also a demonstration of their strength and an increase in their status. And other than their ruler possessed a very close friend who was also an emperor. Currently, the clan possessed two emperors, while even the three halls that ruled the lands only possessed a single emperor each. Soon after Jian Chen had returned to the clan, the news of the ruler of the Turtle Clan's breakthrough to emperor took the entire sea realm by storm. The news immediately shook up the whole place. Many people sighed in surprise while voicing their doubts. At that moment, all the people and organizations in the sea realm discussed this news. There were many important figures of peak organizations who headed to the Turtle Clan with expensive gifts to confirm this matter. In recent years, the sea realm had always stood balanced between three organizations. Now that two emperors had suddenly appeared, it was an extremely significant matter and caused shock to ripple through the entire realm. Many people wondered if the balance would be broken or not. Jian Chen had no idea that his breakthrough to emperor had already spread through the sea realm like wildfire and taken them by storm. He was currently in a meeting in the conference hall of the Turtle Clan. Qing Yishuan, Tai Do, Lan Jing, Xian Pian, and Mokas had all come while the Saint Ruler elders of the clan gathered below. All of the elders were flushed in the face due to becoming overexcited. I've gathered everyone here today to announce a few matters. The first matter is that from today on, the Turtle Clan is able to stand properly in the sea realm. There is no need to fear any organizations, Jian Chen said in high spirits as he gave off a powerful confidence. He possessed enough strength to utter those words now. A cheer of joy immediately rang out from below. A few elders cried from their joy and excitement. They had never been so glorious in the history of the entire clan. Seeing the moved elders below, Jian Chen could not help but think of the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan's face. He sighed inside and thought, Grand Elder, I've already completed most of your final wish. Without long, even without me, the Turtle Clan will be able to stand supreme within the sea realm. Jian Chen continued a while later after everyone had calmed down. The second matter is that I've captured all the important members of the Tao family alliance. They had threatened to destroy the Turtle Clan, so I will hand these people over to you to be dealt with. Jian Chen released Tao Jingtian and the other four Saint Kings from the artifact space. All of them were heavily injured and basically incapacitated. They did not even have the energy to run. We have to kill these people, so we can pacify all our deceased clansmen with their blood. That's the only way we can give an explanation to our fallen clansmen, the elders righteously demanded. Their hatred for the 5 Saint Kings had reached the limits. In the end, the 5 Saint Kings were taken away. They were destined to suffer a very miserable fate, but Jian Chen did not pay any more attention to the matter. Chapter 1337, Treasury of the Tao Family, 1. Jian Chen glanced over Tai Do, Lan Jing, Xian Pian, and Mocha's. After a moment of silence he said, Tai Do, Lan Jing, Xian Pian, and Mocha's, you were initially forced to join this big family with no other choice. I will give you a chance. If you want to leave, I will not stop you. I will gift you some heavenly resources so your strength can increase. After all, you have worked hard for the Turtle Clan in recent times and have committed a meritorious service. Tai Do dropped to his knees without second thought with that. He politely said, Ruler, I will not be leaving. I am willing to stay at the Turtle Clan forever. I may not be a clansman of the Turtle Clan, but if I can become one of the senior members and follow the ruler, I will work until the day my heart stops beating. Lan Jing, Xian Pian, and Mocha's on the other hand did not hurry to speak their thoughts. They looked at one another and were rather hesitant. They were originally the disciplinary elders of the Heaven Spirit Hall and had once participated in the pursuit of Jian Chen with the divine generals of the Serpent God Hall, so they had been forced to follow Jian Chen with no other choice, similar to Tai Do. The three of them hesitated for a very long time before finally making up their minds. Lan Jing said, Ruler, we want to return to the Heaven Spirit Hall because that was where we grew up. We have deep ties with the Heaven Spirit Hall. It's like our home. Jian Chen sighed inside and a sliver of disappointment flashed through his eyes. He said, I respect your choice. You may return whenever you choose to. However, I will give you all a gift before you leave for your great services to the Turtle Clan in the past. I thank the ruler for your intentions. We are already extremely grateful that the ruler is willing to allow us to return to the Heaven Spirit Hall. So how can we accept a gift from you? We are not worthy of accepting it, Xian Pian replied. He felt ashamed because, from a certain perspective, their lives already belonged to Jian Chen. They already felt so shameful that they could not look back at Jian Chen when they actually wanted to leave right now. However, the Heaven Spirit Hall just held an extraordinary position in their hearts. They really did want to return if they could. Jian Chen raised his hand to stop Xian Pian. He said, Before you decline me, do know that my gift can allow your strength to skyrocket such that you can reach the level of Hall Elders in the shortest amount of time possible. Lan Jing, Xian Pian, and Mocha's all raised their heads to look at Jian Chen as shock filled their faces. They did not doubt what Jian Chen had said. After all, he was already an emperor now, so why would he lie? What they found unbelievable was that Jian Chen would actually give them something so valuable. The three of them felt utterly ashamed when they thought about how Jian Chen had given them their freedom and was even giving them such a great gift. Jian Chen waved his hand at the three of them and said, You can go first. I'll send people over to you with the gifts later, and you'll be free after that. I will no longer be interfering with any of your matters. You can leave whenever you wish. Lan Jing, Xian Pian, and Mocha's all bowed at Jian Chen before leaving the hall. With a wave of his hand, Jian Chen threw a ring at Qing Yishuan who was currently staring at him in a daze. He said, Qing Yishuan, the Tao family no longer exists in the Sea Realm from today on. That's the space ring on Tao Jingtian. Have a look and see if what you need is in there. The space ring hovered before Qing Yishuan as an invisible force kept it in the air. Qing Yishuan only seemed to return to her senses then. She grabbed the space ring absent-mindedly and began to search through it. A while later, she became slightly disappointed and said, There isn't what I need in it. However, the Tao family has a treasury that not many people know about. Most of their valuable treasures and important items are stored there. I think the item I'm looking for is in there. With a flick of her finger, she immediately sent the space ring back to Jian Chen. Do you know the location of the treasury? Jian Chen calmly asked. Even though it was the treasury of an ancient peak-level clan, there was rarely anything that could interest Jian Chen now. He had reached a new level of understanding, so ordinary treasures were like nothing to him now. However, the Turtle Clan lacked resources right now, so the accumulated resources of the Tao family just happened to be able to make up for that fact. I know where it is, but before we go, I want to confirm something with you. Are you a Saint Emperor or not? Qing Yishuan asked as she stared fixedly at Jian Chen. Although she had personally witnessed Jian Chen's great fight against the Hallmaster, she still refused to believe that someone, who was not even as strong as her when they first met, could actually become a Saint Emperor in such a short amount of time. After all, Jian Chen was not even a Saint King when he had first stolen the Octaterra map fragment from her. I'm still not a Saint Emperor, But if I really end up fighting, I am no weaker than a Saint Emperor, Jian Chen faintly smiled. Qing Yishuan gasped and began to look at Jian Chen as if she were looking at a monster. She said, "The rate your strength increases really is stunning. You should be able to enter the Tao family's secret treasury since you have that much strength. We should not delay this matter, so let's head off right now. Ruler, the ancestor of the Enlin clan has come to visit. He wishes to see the ruler." At this moment, a guard ran in from outside and politely reported the arrival of an envoy. The Enlin clan? Jian Chen softly repeated the name. He was not unfamiliar with the name. It was one of the powerful clans in the territory of the Sea Goddess Hall, no weaker than the Tao family. The ancestor of the Seintor clan had come, the former patriarch of the Lancing clan has come, the former patriarch of the Shao tribe has come. Many other important figures from various organizations and clans had come to visit the Turtle clan after the Enlin clan. They were all large organizations that reigned supreme in certain regions of the Sea Goddess Hall. Some of them were even more powerful than the Tao family. Jian Chen frowned. He had expected this, but it had happened a little too soon. After all, he had only just returned to the Turtle clan. However, Jian Chen did not plan on receiving the people personally. He knew that the true intention of the people who had come was only to confirm whether the Turtle clan possessed an emperor or not. He just got Tai Ta to stay behind, so he could receive the guests instead of himself. Jian Chen instead hurried off with Qing Yishuan, headed to the treasury of the Tao family. The location of the treasury was over 100,000 kilometers away from the Turtle clan in a swamp. The environment of the swamp was horrendous, teeming with danger and covered in a layer of potent poisonous gas all year round. Jian Chen and Qing Yishuan ignored the gas and made their way to the depths. There they came across a valley that seemed to open up the further and they headed. Suddenly, a dark shadow attacked. It struck like lightning, charging at Jian Chen and Qing Yishuan. It was coated in an extremely potent poisonous gas. Even Saint Kings could not treat it carelessly. Jian Chen did not even glance at it. Extending his finger, he shot out a finger-sized sword qi, which pierced the shadow. Chapter 1338. Treasury of the Tao Family. 2. Bang. The black shadow landed beside Jian Chen's foot and lay there without moving. Only then could they see the shadow's true appearance. It was a 10-meter-long, mutated lizard. Its skin was pitch black and was covered in an oozing substance. It gave off an extremely offensive smell. The lizard possessed an extremely powerful poison. Blood poured from the wound in its head, which had been caused by Jian Chen, and hit the ground, which actually dissolved the soil. A hole appeared and rapidly grew deeper. Jian Chen extended his finger a few more times and shot a few more sword qi at the corpse. Every single strand of sword qi was extremely powerful, easily penetrating the lizard's body. In the end, he removed a fist-sized monster core from the corpse and held it in his hand. Even without any protection, the acidic poison on it could not harm him at all. Jian Chen used a clump of soil to wipe off the poison before storing it in his space ring. The mutated lizard was a Class 8 magical beast. The monster core it possessed was extremely valuable. Even if he had no use for it, he could give it to the experts of the Chongyang clan. Qing Yishuan stared at the dead lizard as she stood beside Jian Chen. She was secretly taken aback. The lizard was no weaker than her, so if she had to fight it, it would have taken her a tremendous amount of effort before she would have been able to slay it. She had never expected it to be killed off by Jian Chen in such an easy fashion, where it was no different from an ant. This was extremely shocking to her. Is this the strength of Saint Emperors? It's actually so terrifying. If Jian Chen used that attack on me, I wonder if I would end up like the lizard or not. Qing Yishuan was extremely astounded inside. She already understood everything now. The bastard who had not been anywhere near her strength before had already become an existence that she could only look up to. Qing Yishuan was immediately taken by an odd feeling when she thought of how she had pursued Jian Chen for so long even after reducing him to such a horrible shape in the past. She had even begun to gently smile to herself because she had hunted down a Saint Emperor in the past. Is this where the treasury of the Tao family is? Jian Chen no longer paid any attention to the lizard's corpse. He let it lie there. Even though it was the corpse of a Class 8 magical beast, he had no intentions of taking it with him. He only looked around the valley carefully. Qing Yishuan dismissed her thoughts and stared at the valley.
She said, "Correct, this is the place. When I secretly followed Tao Jingtian before, I saw him enter this valley."
However, there are many hidden killing formations that are extremely powerful, which was why I did not follow him in.
I do not know the exact location of the treasury in the valley. There really are a lot of formations in this valley. Even if a ninth heavenly layer Saint King enters, he will die if he is careless.
These formations should have been personally cast down long ago by a Saint Emperor.
It's impossible for Saint Kings to cast down such powerful formations, Jian Chen said.
He had already expanded the senses of his soul to envelope the entire valley.
He had found many formations hidden in it. The Tao family is a great clan that once gave birth to a Saint Emperor, but there were extremely many Saint Emperors in that era, nowhere near as scarce as nowadays. As a result, the Saint Emperor of the Tao family was not enough to lead the Tao family to extreme glory. These formations were probably cast down by him, so breaking through them will probably need an expert of the same strength, said Qing Yishuan as she looked at Jian Chen. It would all depend on Jian Chen if they could reach the treasures of the Tao family today. There was something she needed in there. Has no one ever discovered the treasury of the Tao family after so many years? Jian Chen asked. Qing Yishuan silently pondered before saying, if I recall correctly, the past Saint Emperor of the Tao family had once used his abilities to engulf this valley and lock it up, causing it to be difficult to discover even by other Saint Emperors, which is why this place has never been discovered by others. However, with the passage of time, the abilities he had used lost their effects, which is why this place is now exposed. However, this place is extremely well hidden and no one comes here often. I had only accidentally learned of the treasury in the past and found it by secretly following Tao Jingtian here.
Jian Chen nodded. He believed most of what Qing Yishuan had said because the valley really was prepared by a Saint Emperor.
Let's go in. Follow me carefully. I think I found the exact location of the treasury, Jian Chen calmly informed her as he stepped into the valley. Immediately, the landscape around him underwent a sudden shift.
The valley had vanished and he now stood atop a vast body of water.
The wave surged into the sky as a huge beast charged over. Its presence was like a mountain while its pressure flooded the surroundings. It was a beast with the power of Saint Emperors. It was extraordinarily powerful. Jian Chen's face remained the same as he sighed. This formation really is extraordinary. Even if Saint Emperors want to destroy it, it'll take them quite the effort. Unfortunately, the formations decayed with the passage of time. Its strength has drastically been reduced and can no longer stand a blow from a Saint Emperor. Jian Chen swung his sleeve and shot out countless strands of sword qi. The sword qi split into two streams. One stream shot into the body of water while the other headed toward the air, shattering the air. Boom! With a great rumble, the space violently shook. Before the beast could reach Jian Chen, it had dissolved and the landscape around Jian Chen changed once again. The water disappeared as he returned to the valley. Afterward, Jian Chen continued into the depths with Qing Yishuan. They traveled like a hot knife through butter, sweeping through all the formations hidden on their path. The formations really were very powerful. They could stop Saint Emperors if they were in perfect condition, but they could only be used to deal with Saint Kings now. They were obviously not enough to stop Jian Chen.
Soon afterward, the two of them arrived at the very depths of the valley.
A bumpy cliff face stood before them. We've reached the end of the valley, said Qing Yishuan. She looked around for any possible places.
It should be here. Jian Chen stared at the cliff face before him. The senses of his soul had already found that a formation was hiding something here.
Boom! With a loud sound, Jian Chen shot a sword qi at the cliff face, causing the ground to violently shake while dust was kicked into the air. A huge cave appeared before the two of them. It was pitch black inside while a cold, moist wind blew out. Qing Yishuan's eyes narrowed. She had failed to find any signs of this place even from such a close distance. This made her sigh, praising the greatness of the formations here. The cave was very deep and sloped down into the ground. The two of them followed the slope and traveled for several kilometers before arriving in front of a huge stone gate. The gate was filled with pulses of powerful energy, causing it to become extremely tough. Jian Chen did not destroy it forcefully in order to prevent the cave from collapsing. Instead, he used a strand of sword qi to cut out a hole 2 meters tall and wide so that they could enter. A huge space was hidden behind the door and countless luminous pearls of various colors were wedged in the ceiling. Most of them were fist-sized, but some were even the size of a human head. A mountainous pile of crystal coins was stacked neatly in a corner. They gave off an extremely dense water-attributed energy. These crystal coins had all surpassed grand quality and had reached the level of divine quality. A bookshelf made from rare metal held several dozen books in a neat fashion. Every single one of them was extremely crude and riddled with the marks of time, having existed for countless years without being destroyed. Chapter 1339. A damaged piece of divine armor in the center of the room stood two large, square tablets. They were covered in beautiful and exquisite inscriptions depicting a human using an extremely powerful attack. Even though they were just carvings, they gave off an extraordinary feeling as if they vaguely contained the pressure of the world. Jian Chen became fixated on the two tablets as joy appeared in his eyes. He had already realized that they were Saint-tier battle skills suitable for humans and that they were complete. The Flame Mercenaries had only been founded recently. They seemed powerful on the surface, but they lacked in certain areas far too much. High-tier battle skills like these just happened to be what the mercenaries were in urgent need of, because it was impossible for the Flame Mercenaries to become truly independent and powerful without Saint-tier battle skills. And other than the Flame Mercenaries, the Chongyang clan needed these items as well. It was a great harvest for Jian Chen, finding two complete Saint-tier battle skills in the treasury of the Tao family. Jian Chen swept his gaze around and discovered two weapons stabbed in a huge rock near the Saint-tier battle skills. One of them was a blade while the other was a sword. They were both enshrouded by an obscuring glow as they pulsed with powerful energy. Emperor armaments. Jian Chen felt shocked once more. The treasury of the Tao family was far wealthier than he had ever imagined. Not only were there two complete Saint-tier battle skills, there were even Emperor armaments. If these items were placed on the Tianyuan continent, Saint Kings would engage in bloody fights to obtain them. However, only humans could use the Saint-tier battle skills or the Emperor armaments. Their power was limited when used by the sea race. As soon as Qing Yishuan entered the cave, her gaze became locked onto the Emperor armaments and the Saint-tier battle skills. Her eyes burned with desire as she mumbled, "I once heard by accident that the ancestor of the Tao family had visited the Tianyuan continent and had a fortuitous encounter there. He came across a dwelling where a very powerful expert had passed away in meditation and really benefited from the encounter. Not only were there Saint-tier battle skills, there were even Emperor armaments. Looks like it's true. Unfortunately, the Emperor armaments can only be used by humans while the Saint-tier battle skills can only be practiced by humans. They're not suitable for the sea race, or the Tao family would have been able to become even more powerful with just the Saint-tier battle skills." Jian Chen agreed with what Qing Yishuan had said. If Tao Jingtian had grasped a Saint-tier battle skill with his strength, he would have been able to take on Saint Kings at great perfection. And once he possessed a battle prowess like that, the Tao family's fate would not have ended as miserably as it did. Unfortunately, the Saint Emperor that had appeared in their clan did not create any Saint-tier battle skills himself. Saint-tier battle skills were a heavenly might. Not only did a person require supreme talent and remarkable abilities of comprehensions to come up with a Saint-tier battle skill, but they also needed to conform with the world on a certain level. Only with these special circumstances would they be able to come up with a Saint-tier battle skill. In the history of the Tianyuan continent, there were a few experts who had only just reached Saint King and had managed to come up with shockingly powerful Saint-tier battle skills under special circumstances. At the same time, there were some people with almost unprecedented talent who never came up with a single one even after becoming a peak Saint Emperor. Qing Yishuan turned to Jian Chen and said, "Jian Chen, do you still remember how the Tao family just happened to be in possession of what I needed? The items are right in front of me, so I hope you will not get in my way." Qing Yishuan's eyes were filled with desire and urgency. If Jian Chen was only as powerful as before, Qing Yishuan never would have said those words, but she required Jian Chen's agreement now. "You need an Emperor armament?" Jian Chen looked at Qing Yishuan. If he had known earlier than the item Qing Yishuan needed was an Emperor armament, he would have given her the Emperor armament he owned back at the Turtle Clan. It was completely useless to him now that he had reached the fourth layer of the chaotic body and comprehended the first realm of sword origin. The weapon was unable to withstand his power now. Qing Yishuan nodded before staring at one of the Saint-tier battle skills for a while. She said, "I also want a Saint-tier battle skill. You can have everything other than those two items." Jian Chen thought about it a little and replied, "You can have the Emperor armament, but the Saint-tier battle skill is very important to me as well. I can only lend it to you,
So return it to me after you've comprehended it.
All right, deal.
Qing Yishuan agreed in an extremely straightforward fashion before taking the sword-shaped emperor armament and one of the Saint-tier battle skill tablets.
Jian Chen continued to look through the treasury.
There were a lot of items that had been accumulated over the years, and they were invaluable, but they were no different than soil in Jian Chen's eyes.
He could not be bothered to look through them. In reality, even the pile of divine quality crystal coins did not catch Jian Chen's attention either. In the end, Jian Chen arrived before the bookshelf made of rare metal.
He found that a third of the books there were cultivation methods and the experiences and comprehensions of saint emperors. Not only were there ones that belonged to the sea race, but there were also ones that belonged to humans and magical beasts as well. A small portion of the remaining books were heaven-tier battle skills created by humans, while the remaining books detailed various wondrous items in the world as well as ancient records regarding the history of the sea race.
Jian Chen pulled out an ancient piece of beast leather from an inconspicuous part of the bookshelf.
He unrolled it and found that the leather was a meter long and wide and was covered with extremely complicated and detailed inscribings of a formation, which seemed to contain another world.
Jian Chen had almost been drawn away by it, even with his powerful soul. What's this? Jian Chen was surprised and immediately became stern. He could already tell that the beast leather was not as simple as it seemed. This is a teleportation formation, and a high-level teleportation formation. It can be used to move between worlds.
That's weird.
Such a high-level teleportation formation only appears in higher worlds, so how has it ended up here? Zi Ying's voice rang through Jian Chen's head, filled with surprise. This piece of beast leather originates from a higher world as well. It's extremely tough and should have come from a beast that's reached godhood at the very least. Even saint emperors cannot destroy it. Master, this teleportation formation will be of great use to you, so you must store it away well, said Qing Sua. With that, Jian Chen immediately pulled out an embroidered box and properly stored the teleportation formation in the box. Suddenly, Zi Ying produced an interjection of surprise.
He stared at a corner of the treasury in interest and said, "Master, go over there.
There's something very impressive there." Jian Chen was surprised as disbelief slightly filled his face. The Azulate sword spirits possessed an extremely incredible insight, so barely anything would catch their eye, but they had actually described something as very impressive, which shocked him very much. Jian Chen immediately hurried over to the location Zi Ying specified without any hesitation. He then dug out a piece of armor from a large pile of valuable treasures by following Zi Ying's instructions. The piece of armor was pitch black and made from an unknown material.
It was as light as a feather, as if it did not possess any weight at all.
However, it was extremely damaged and not in perfect condition. Zi Ying, Qing Sua, what's so fantastic about this piece of armor? Jian Chen asked out of curiosity.
He examined the piece of armor in his hands and failed to discover anything out of the ordinary other than the special material it was made of.
Master, this is a piece of divine armor. It's a god artifact even greater than immortal artifacts. At the same time, the grade of the armor is impressive as well.
I estimate that the owner of the armor was a chaotic prime at the very least, possibly even a grand prime.
It's just that the armor is far too heavily damaged where it's almost completely ruined, Zi Ying said in pity. Jian Chen was shocked and the hand he was using to hold the piece of armor began to tremble slightly.
He stared at the armor in disbelief as his heart churned.
This was actually a piece of armor that had very likely been worn by a Grand Prime. Grand Primes were peak existences in higher worlds, so the armor they wore would definitely be a great treasure. Right now, he had actually come across such a treasure here. Even though it was damaged, it still left Jian Chen flabbergasted. In my opinion, the expert from the higher world was probably embroiled in a great battle and became heavily injured. In the end, he fell into a spatial crack and descended here by luck, which was how this armor was obtained by the people of the Tao family in the end. Qing Sua analyzed the likelihood. Chapter 1340. The Sea of Despair. This piece of divine armor has already been reduced to something like this. Can it still be used? Jian Chen asked.
He found the situation rather regretful since the power of the armor was evident, but it was just far too damaged.
From the looks of it, the divine armor isn't really useful anymore. Its inscriptions are damaged and the artifact spirit has dispersed.
Other than the fact that the material it's made of is very tough, It cannot protect the wearer from anything. However, keep it with you, master. Once your strength increases in the future, you can look for some materials to repair it. It may not be able to recover its perfect shape, but it'll be useful for master, said Ziying. Don't be too disappointed, master. With your current strength, obtaining this damaged piece of armor is better than obtaining it in perfect condition because every god artifact has extremely high requirements before it can be used. Only those who have become immortal monarchs can begin to forge, and they cannot exceed an ordinary tier at most. Anything beyond that will require immortal emperors or even immortal exalts, said Ziying. Afterward, he looked at the damaged piece of armor in Jian Chen's hand and continued, this should be a high-quality god artifact or even a supreme-quality god artifact, which is why it would be useless to you if it was in perfect condition. Having it damaged is more useful to you. Ziying nodded in agreement. Qing Suo is right. If this armor was in perfect condition, master would not be able to use it even if it was just a low-quality god artifact. However, once it is repaired, its quality will fall and possibly descend to the level of immortal artifacts. Once master breaks through another layer of the chaotic body, then master will be able to use it. Jian Chen beamed with joy with that. He said, Ziying, Qing Suo, don't you have a method to repair this god artifact, even if it makes its quality fall? We do have an idea, but we need a few materials. Fortunately, we don't need to repair the armor completely, so the materials we need aren't too high of a grade. We should be able to find them on the Tianyuan continent, responded Ziying. Jian Chen immediately became excited. He was rather eager to get the armor fixed because he would have a great trump card when he moved on to the Saints' world. Although the defenses of his chaotic body were impressive, he did not mind wearing some powerful armor as well. The treasury of the Tao family had brought Jian Chen unexpected joy. Not only had he found a large amount of cultivation resources and 2 saint-tier battle skills, but he had also come across 2 treasures that were useful to him, which definitely caught him by surprise. Jian Chen cleaned out the treasury of the Tao family. He split all the items into 2 portions, one for the Turtle Clan and the other for the Flame Mercenaries. When Jian Chen and Qing Yishuan left the treasury, only half a day had passed since they had entered. Qing Yishuan looked at Jian Chen outside the treasury with somewhat mixed emotions and said, Jian Chen, I will be bidding farewell to you here. I will be leaving the Sea Realm soon. I will return the Saint-tier battle skill to a place you suggest after I comprehend it. Jian Chen stared at her calmly and asked, do you have some powerful enemies on the Tianyuan continent? I feel like you came to the Sea Realm for refuge. Qing Yishuan nodded rather forcefully and said, to be honest, I offended a powerful organization on the Tianyuan continent and was pursued by them when I was just a saint ruler. With no other choice, I hid in the Sea Realm. Since you're still not bold enough to return to the Tianyuan continent with your strength right now, the organization you've probably offended is either an ancient clan or a protector clan. Seeing how much you have helped the Turtle Clan, I'll help you out. Jian Chen pulled out a jade box from his space ring and said, there's an immortal peach in there. It's far more valuable than any heavenly resource you know of. Once you ingest it, your strength will reach great perfection in an extremely short amount of time, or you might even become a saint emperor. The box carried a violet cloud peach of the 1st grade. It could increase the eater's cultivation by 500 years. The 500 years were calculated from the perspective of the immortal's world, so in a lower world, it was enough to overcome 1,000 years of cultivation or even more. Jian Chen and Qing Yishuan went their separate ways. She left by herself after accepting the peach from Jian Chen, but she was suspicious of what Jian Chen had said, how a single peach could elevate her to great perfection in such a short amount of time. She did not believe it, because it sounded far too preposterous. Jian Chen did not stick around for long either. He made his way back to the Turtle Clan. There were more and more people visiting the Turtle Clan now. All of them were people who held authority in large clans, and almost all of them were saint kings. Almost all the large clans in the territory of the Sea Goddess Hall had sent people, and some people from the large clans even came from the territory of the other 2 halls. Without a single exception, they had come to see the ruler of the Turtle Clan. Of course, that obviously did not happen. They only saw the elders of the clan. Although some of them felt extremely dissatisfied over the fact that they had to speak with a group of saint rulers with their status as saint kings, none of them dared to express their dissatisfaction because a tremendous presence warned them at all times that a saint emperor was paying attention to the whole interaction. Jian Chen did not show himself. He returned silently to his own room and, other than Tai Ta, no one discovered him. 3 days later, Jian Chen and Yadrium appeared in a desolate region in the sea realm. The energy of the world in the region around them was extremely thin to the point where it was impossible for people to cultivate here. Before them was a parched land that extended into thick mist. The mist was very odd. Jian Chen was not able to see through it even with his strength, and even his soul was obstructed, unable to reach into the mist. Up ahead is the Sea of Despair, one of the most well-known zones of danger in the sea realm. Its dangers are even greater than the divine realm because even emperors have the chance of dying once they step into it. In ancient times, many emperors fell here and some of their corpses even disappeared, Yadrium said heavy-heartedly. She bathed in blue light so her face was obscured, but it could be imagined just how stern she was. Even with her great strength, where she barely had any opponents among all the saint emperors currently present, she was not completely confident she could return safely once she set foot in there. Are there emperor-level beasts in the Sea of Despair? Jian Chen asked in surprise. No, there are no beasts in the Sea of Despair. Before Yadrium could reply, a familiar voice rang out. The sea goddess' blurry figure hovered before the two of them. Chapter 1341. Vicious Spirits of the Mist. 1. I greet your majesty. Yadrium dismissed her prideful attitude once the sea goddess arrived and politely bowed to her. Her voice carried respect from the bottom of her heart. I greet your majesty. Jian Chen clasped his hands at the sea goddess as well. There may not be any beasts in the Sea of Despair, but the dangers in there are, without a doubt, the most dangerous in the sea realm. Let alone saint emperors, even I had to be careful when I stepped in there back when I was at my peak. The dangers of the Sea of Despair greatly exceed your imaginations. The sea goddess did not bother too much with courtesies. She explained the details of the Sea of Despair to the two of them. Probably no one in the sea realm even possessed a tenth of the sea goddess knowledge with regards to the Sea of Despair. Both Jian Chen and Yadrium were shocked by what they heard. Just what type of place was the Sea of Despair if even the sea goddess needed to be careful when she set foot in there when she was at her peak? The dangers there were actually terrifying enough to endanger Origin Realm experts. The sea goddess continued. The mist of the Sea of Despair is thick and never disperses. It remains like this all year round. The mist is no ordinary mist either but an extremely weird energy. It can silently invade your body and eat away at your life force, so you will be under the constant invasion of the mist once you set foot in there. Other than that, there are many vicious spirits that have been born in the mist. They are very difficult to deal with, and some powerful vicious spirits can even slay saint emperors. Fortunately, there are not a lot of spirits that are that powerful, so the chances of coming across one that's strong is very small. However, you need to take every single step with care and remain vigilant once you enter. Other than that, there are 2 things you should keep in mind. The space in the Sea of Despair is very unstable, so spatial distortions happen often, making it very easy to become disorientated. You just need to follow the abyssal crystal to find the right path. The second thing is that once you enter regions where the mist thins, retreat as quickly as possible. Do not stay there any longer than you need because they are forbidden regions. The sea goddess became extremely stern when she reached the second point. She was extremely fearful of places like that. Jian Chen shivered. He found it rather unbelievable that even the sea goddess, who was an Origin Realm expert, found it so terrifying. After all, she had surpassed Saint Emperor and, according to the sword spirits, was an immortal. I've said all I need to say. Once you enter the Sea of Despair, I won't be able to provide any support to you at all. It will all depend on the 2 of you inside. Do remember that as soon as you come across any spatial distortions, move together and do not separate from each other. There is only one abyssal crystal, the sea goddess warned at the very end before watching Jian Chen and Yadrium enter the Sea of Despair. They soon disappeared in the rolling mists. Only when the 2 of them had completely disappeared did the sea goddess sigh. For my return, I have to get the 2 of them to risk their lives to search for my divine hall. Aren't I a little too selfish? I hope they return safely. Jian Chen felt like he had been engulfed by an extremely thick mist as soon as he entered the Sea of Despair. It became hazy white all around him, and even with his vision, he was only able to see 100 meters away. The senses of his soul had become completely useless in the mist as well. The mist there was very abnormal. It was formed from an odd energy and maintained a certain density. Jian Chen was surrounded by the mist but felt like he was in soft cotton instead. The cotton constantly pressed against his body before turning into thin strands of energy in an attempt to seep into his body. Jian Chen had learned from the sea goddess that the weird mist could devour his life force, so he dared not to be careless at all. Chaotic force immediately flowed through his body and filled every inch of him to stop the invading mist. By his side, Yadrium was enveloped by a layer of powerful water-attributed energy that stopped the invasion of the mist as well. She then removed the abyssal crystal from her space ring with a flip of her hand. The palm-sized crystal let out a gentle glow as it hovered in the air, changing with Yadrium's hand seals. The energy inside immediately began to leak out, gradually condensing into a small, blue bird. The abyssal bird was only the size of a fist. It flapped its wings and flew off into the distance as a blue streak of light. It moved very quickly, disappearing from Jian Chen and Yadrium's line of sight in the blink of an eye. The abyssal bird will take us to find the sea goddess divine hall. Let's go, the sea goddess called at Jian Chen before running off in the direction of the abyssal bird. Yadrium possessed a mental connection with the bird, so even after it had vanished from her vision, she could still discern where the bird was. Not only was the space of the Sea of Despair very unstable, it was weird as well. Jian Chen and Yadrium came across many weird regions of space that pulsed rhythmically like a person's heart, as if they possessed life. They were filled with a malevolent feeling. Jian Chen and Yadrium advanced along the route of the bird. They constantly changed directions along the way, and even had to backtrack along the path they had come from a few times. The space in the Sea of Despair was distorted, making it seem like they had to backtrack many times, but they had actually maintained a straight path without any deviations. Suddenly, the space beside Jian Chen shook. A ripple of space expanded toward Jian Chen with lightning-like speed before striking his left arm. Silently, the clothes on Jian Chen's left arm ripped open and a crack appeared. His arm was injured and bright red blood seeped out. Jian Chen glanced at the wound on his arm and secretly felt shocked. His fourth-layer chaotic body had actually been injured so easily. If any other Saint King tried to withstand the strike, they probably would have been ripped into two by the spatial ripple. This place really is dangerous. The dangers here are incomparable to the divine realm, Jian Chen thought and became even more vigilant. Jian Chen and Yadrium continued on. They had no sense of time in the Sea of Despair, so they had no idea how long they had traveled for either. In the end, the abyssal bird had disappeared twice because it had ran out of energy. It was already the third time that Yadrium had used her secret technique to summon it. They were getting closer and closer to the depths of the Sea of Despair now, but Jian Chen seemed to be in a rather horrible shape. His clothes were ripped all over and covered with bloody marks, clearly having been injured multiple times. These had all been caused by the ripples of space that would randomly appeared. Yadrium was no exception either. She had sustained some light injuries as well, but her body was surrounded by a layer of energy to fend off the invasion of the mist. As a result, it was impossible to see her face. A few specks of light silently made their way toward Jian Chen and Yadrium from behind. The faint lights pulsed, dim and bright, fusing perfectly with the mist in the surroundings. They seemed like sets of ghosts' eyes. Even though the two of them moved very quickly, the specks of light remained behind them. They were not shaken off and did not seem much different from the mist in the surroundings. They were obscured and gave off no presence at all, so they did not catch Jian Chen or Yadrium's attention at all. Chapter 1342. Vicious Spirits of the Mist, 2. There were only a few pairs of eyes in the beginning before increasing to over 10. They followed close behind Jian Chen and Yadrium and very quickly, remaining silent throughout their journey. When the pairs of eyes reached over 20 in number, they could no longer resist and attacked Jian Chen and Yadrium. Over 20 thick, hazy tendrils quickly stabbed toward Jian Chen and Yadrium's heads. They seemed to be completely condensed from mist and seemed to be a part of the surroundings, making it impossible to discover their existence without a close observation of one's surroundings. Jian Chen and Yadrium were alerted the moment the pairs of eyes began to attack the two of them. Without even looking back, Jian Chen condensed a silver-white sword chi on his arm and swung it back, sending a scattering of powerful sword chi. The tendrils immediately dispersed when they clashed with the sword chi, while the sword chi continued on toward the eyes without weakening at all. A sharp cry immediately rang out from behind. The sword chi had landed on the mist, and a few blurry figures began to flicker inside before dispersing. The figures varied from each other. There were human-shaped ones, beast-shaped ones, and even oddly shaped ones.
Every single one of the figures represented a pair of eyes. Several of the eyes immediately dispersed. At the same time, a pulse of surging energy appeared. Yadrium struck out as well. A trident of energy had already condensed in her hand, and she threw it like a javelin. The trident split into 2, then 4, and then 8, quickly shooting toward the eyes behind them. The 8 tridents seemed to weave together as the powerful energy pulses they gave off caused the mist in the surroundings to violently churn. They easily tore through the tendrils before viciously striking the eyes. Every single trident possessed deadly precision, each striking a blurry figure in the mist, which was then followed by an ear-piercing howl. The figures that had been struck immediately dispersed. The eyes seemed to possess a certain level of intelligence. After losing around a dozen companions, they seemed to have understood Jian Chen and Yadrium's strength. Without any hesitation, they quickly retreated and vanished into the endless mist. Jian Chen and Yadrium glared in the direction the eyes had disappeared. They frowned, and after a while of thought, Jian Chen said, "What weird things. Not only can they move silently, but they also don't give off any presence either. I actually failed to sense that there was anything following us. If I hadn't sensed their sudden attacks, we probably would have been in trouble before we even knew about it. Those must be the vicious spirits mentioned by Her Majesty. They came into existence from the mist. They're quite hard to deal with, but fortunately they aren't powerful, which was why we managed to repel them so easily. We have to be careful with our every step in the future. If we come across any Emperor-level spirits, they'll be hard to deal with even if we work together," said Yadrium. She was rather stern. Jian Chen nodded quietly. Although he possessed the battle prowess of a Saint Emperor right now, he was still not the real deal. Saint Emperors could fall here, and even Origin Realm experts needed to move carefully, so he needed to be prepared and remain vigilant at all times. Yadrium had lost the connection with the Abyssal Bird again. She pulled out the Abyssal Crystal and used a secret technique to summon the Abyssal Bird using the energy within the crystal so that they could continue on their way. As they moved, Jian Chen and Yadrium constantly encountered sneak attacks from the spirits in the mist, but under their vigilance, they were discovered beforehand and wiped out with lightning-like speed. However, as they rapidly traveled further into the Sea of Despair, the vicious spirits they came across constantly grew stronger. They now faced Saint King-level spirits and would even encounter some at great perfection. They had no idea how many spirits there were in the mist. Jian Chen and Yadrium had already wiped out several thousand, but the number of them did not seem to decrease at all. They also had to adjust their paths constantly due to the distortions of space. Along the way, they were ambushed by over 10 vicious spirits at great perfection. The spirits were unable to harm the body. Their attacks only affected the soul, so they suffered. However, Jian Chen was no ordinary person while Yadrium possessed supreme strength, so the soul attacks did not affect them too much. Suddenly, an ear-piercing scream rang out from ahead. It was extraordinarily unpleasant, containing an attack on the soul. Jian Chen and Yadrium stopped simultaneously. They sternly stared ahead and remained on guard. Their souls actually wavered slightly because of the scream. "Be careful. There should be an extremely powerful vicious spirit up ahead, at the level of emperors," Yadrium said in heavy voice, as if she was about to face a great enemy. Even the sea goddess had said that they were difficult to deal with, so they could not afford to be careless. Jian Chen became stern as well. He looked around his surroundings and said, "Should we take a detour?" As soon as Jian Chen finished speaking, the mist up ahead began to churn violently. A white figure gradually appeared before the two of them. It seemed to be completely composed of mist. It was a human-shaped vicious spirit with a long tail. It did not possess facial features, only a pair of extremely bright but foul eyes. With the appearance of the vicious spirit, many more eyes appeared one after another in the surroundings. There were several dozen pairs of them. The two of them had been completely surrounded by a group of spirits. Every single one of them was very powerful, the weakest being a Saint King. "Looks like we can't make it away anymore," Jian Chen said rather regretfully. He knew that this battle was now unavoidable. "I'll go keep the Emperor-level vicious spirit busy. You deal with the others," Yadrium said heavily before decisively moving out. She charged at the Emperor-level spirit and began to engage in a great battle with her trident. The vicious spirit seemed to possess a tangible body. When it clashed with Yadrium the first time,
It actually produced a powerful pulse of energy that caused the surrounding mist to churn violently.
Yadrium shivered inside. She did not gain the upper hand at all from the first clash. She was only on equal ground.
However, the vicious spirits did not specialize in open battle but in targeting the souls of people.
Open battles were their weaknesses.
Yadrium was filled with an unpleasant feeling since their strength was equal in an open clash. She dared not hold back any longer, attacking the vengeful spirit with all she had. On the other side, Jian Chen began to fight with the surrounding spirits as well. A powerful sword chi was condensed in his right hand as he flickered through the mist with the illusory flash, dispersing the spirits one by one. Since the disparity of strength was just far too great, coupled with the fact that Jian Chen's sword chi was condensed from laws, the spirits were helpless against him. They immediately vanished once they were stabbed by the sword chi. Seeing how its subordinates were being culled by Jian Chen, the emperor-level spirit seemed to have become furious. It produced an ear-piercing screech and the surrounding spirits all began to charge at Jian Chen as if they had just received some order.
Jian Chen dispersed the spirits in a single stroke before dodging by using the illusory flash.
However, the spirits were born from the mist, so they were in their natural environment. Thus, they were no slower than Jian Chen, surrounding him once again in the blink of an eye before boldly charging at him. Jian Chen pushed the defense of his chaotic body to its limit, and a white glow covered him as well. He was protecting himself with laws. Chapter 1343. Weapon of the Sea Goddess. The vicious spirits charged at Jian Chen's light barrier, but when they came in contact with the glow, they all produced hissing sizzles, like grease in a fire pit. Although Jian Chen's glow was similar to the barriers condensed from energy by other fighters, it possessed quite a powerful offensive ability as well. When the vengeful spirits collided with the light, their figures rapidly dimmed before dispersing soon after. Jian Chen's layer of protection dimmed slightly after successfully blocking the spirits since their attacks were on the level of Saint Kings. The spirits in the surroundings charged endlessly toward Jian Chen. They had no regard for life or death at all. In that moment, they seemed to have become fearless, cold-blooded warriors. Finally, Jian Chen's layer of protection shattered after dispersing over 10 vengeful spirits. The remaining spirits turned into something akin to a flood as they surged toward Jian Chen's head. Jian Chen seemed to understand their intentions as his lips curled into an odd smile. He did not resist at all, allowing the spirits to enter his sea of consciousness. Although Yadrium was engaged in an intense battle with the emperor-level spirit, she always paid attention to Jian Chen's situation. Seeing all the spirits enter Jian Chen's head, she could not help but panic. The spirits were most skilled at attacking the souls of people, which was one of the hardest things to guard against. Injuries of the soul were far more severe than injuries of the body. Even Saint Emperors would not be able to ward off so many attacks from Saint King vicious spirits, let alone Jian Chen who only possessed the battle prowess of a Saint Emperor. There was even a chance that they would die. Unfortunately, she needed to keep her opponent busy and was unable to break free. At the same time, the spirits had already entered Jian Chen's head. It was too late even if she wanted to assist him. Yadrium paid close attention to Jian Chen's situation as she fought against the emperor-level spirit. Some worry and anxiety appeared in her eyes. She did not wish to see Jian Chen die here. Spurt. Yadrium was injured by the spirit under her carelessness. She vomited a mouthful of blood and was blown away. Her opponent immediately pursued her. The spirit's body became intangible again, dissolving into a ball of mist as it hovered over. It formed a cage around Yadrium. Blue light shone bright within the white cage as terrifying ripples of energy pulsed in the surroundings. Yadrium had dismissed her thoughts and struck out with all her strength, engaging in an intense battle with the spirit cage. Behind her, an avatar that seemed like a fishman condensed. It possessed a surging presence. Every single strike from her seemed destructive. Yadrium was injured, but she was still very powerful. The cage shook violently. A part of the spirit engaged in a devastating battle with her inside the cage. Jian Chen remained in the same spot without moving at all as several dozen spirits entered his head.
He seemed like a statue.
However, this did not last too long. Jian Chen opened his eyes a few seconds later. The light in his eyes shone with interest as he glared at the emperor-level spirit's cage. He then sent a powerful sword chi in that direction. Boom! The cage of mist around Yadrium was already showing signs of collapsing from her attacks,
so it immediately erupted in a violent fashion with Jian Chen's attack. Discovering that Jian Chen was fine, Yadriam immediately let out a sigh of relief before focusing on her battle against the spirit. Yadriam's opponent possessed a certain level of intelligence. Seeing how Jian Chen was perfectly fine, it was clearly dumbstruck and in some disbelief. Jian Chen used the illusory flash and charged toward the spirit as a blur. A 2-meter-long sword qi had already condensed in his hand, which he used to stab at the spirit along with a dazzling white light. The sword qi pierced the spirit and produced hissing sounds. A fist-sized hole was rapidly dissolved away by the sword qi. Yadriam's eyes narrowed at the sight of this. She was secretly shocked. Jian Chen's threat against the spirits was actually even greater than her own. Just what is the energy that Jian Chen uses? It seems to be at the same level as the power of emperors, but it also seems to be at a far greater level, Yadriam thought. The emperor-level spirit gradually fell to a disadvantage against Jian Chen and Yadriam's teamwork. It became even more illusory, mostly due to the attacks from Jian Chen. After all, Jian Chen's sword qi was a condensation of laws. It was far more harmful to the spirit than Yadriam. Suddenly, the spirit turned into mist and split into two. Those two pieces pierced toward Jian Chen and Yadriam's foreheads at the same time, like swords. Jian Chen's protective glow was unable to stop the spirit at the level of emperors. It entered his head in the end. Yadriam was not fortunate enough to avoid it either. The spirit managed to attack her soul. The emperor-level spirit materialized into a terrifying white devil in Jian Chen's sea of consciousness. However, before it could devour his soul, an azure and violet light enveloped the demon. The landscape of the sea of consciousness underwent a drastic change. A vast starry sky appeared where countless corpses of immortals littered the space. Golden blood hovered among the stars, radiating with a terrifying pressure and energy pulses. The white devil began to violently tremble as fear filled its eyes. Afterward, it screamed and immediately fled. It hurried away at a speed many times faster than when it had come in, leaving Jian Chen's sea of consciousness. At the same time, the center of Yadriam's eyebrows erupted with a dazzling blue light. A blue imprint of a trident suddenly appeared, and it left her face and rapidly expanded, turning into a 3-meter-long trident that hovered over her. It gave off a layer of blue light, which enveloped her. This was a weapon of true power. It pulsed in a terrifying fashion. The presence was actually countless times more powerful than emperor armaments. The spirit was forced out by the weapon and rapidly fused with its other half before glancing at Jian Chen with lingering fear. Afterward, it turned and fled without staying any longer. Yadriam just happened to catch the fear the spirit had looked at Jian Chen with. She was clearly stunned, as if she did not believe what she had just seen. She then glanced at Jian Chen and sank into her thoughts. Jian Chen stared in the direction the spirit had fled in for a while before looking at Yadriam. He became fixated on the trident above her head while his face was filled with surprise. He said, "Hallmaster, is that an emperor armament? Why do I feel that it's even more powerful than the ancestral weapons of the 10 protector clans?" The trident rapidly shrank with a blurry glow, returning to its original imprint-like shape and embedding itself in Yadriam's forehead again where it rapidly vanished. Yadriam thought about how to respond silently before saying, "This isn't an emperor armament. It's the weapon that Her Majesty once used in the past." "Is that so? No wonder the weapon's so powerful." Jian Chen understood. Obviously, the weapon of an Origin Realm expert could not be compared to emperor armaments in terms of power. Chapter 1344. The Anata Tower. Although I am in possession of Her Majesty's weapon, I cannot use it whenever I want. I can only use it if I am in a situation where my life is threatened, Yadriam added. Her gaze toward Jian Chen was filled with curiosity. She had to use the sea goddess weapon to drive off the vicious spirit, so she was very curious what Jian Chen had used to do the same thing. No wonder he can emerge unscathed after so many spirits had attacked his soul. Even emperor-level spirits are unable to do anything to him and end up reacting with fear. Jian Chen must be in possession of something impressive. Yadriam thought, but she did not ask Jian Chen about it. Every single person possessed their secrets. The next part of the journey was relatively peaceful. Although they came across a few dangers from time to time, the number of vicious spirits that attacked them drastically decreased. Suddenly, the surrounding mist began to grow thin.
Their range of visibility extended to over 10,000 meters from just 100 meters before. The region of space there was very stable, where even a battle between Saint Emperors would fail to cause it to ripple. "Stop!" Yadrium cried out and immediately stopped with Jian Chen. Both of them became very stern because they had remembered a warning the sea goddess had gave them. They had to avoid regions where the mist thinned because they were forbidden. "We've entered a forbidden zone. Retreat!" Yadrium said heavily, but before she could finish what she was saying, a terrifying killing intent filled the surroundings and enveloped the two of them. They immediately felt like they had plunged into the waters of the Arctic, where it was bone-chillingly cold. The killing intent was just far too powerful, at a level where it was just shocking. Even with their strength, Yadrium and Jian Chen felt like they had been immobilized by the killing intent, as if they had been frozen there. Both of them were stupefied. The Forbidden Zone was even more terrifying than they had imagined. Just the killing intent had reached such horrendously powerful levels. Jian Chen and Yadrium looked to a spot over 10 kilometers away. At that spot, there was an abnormal ball of flickering red light. There were marks of bright red blood on the ground that had still not dried. The terrifying killing intent in the surroundings originated from the red light. "What is that?" Jian Chen and Yadrium became fixated on the ball of red light. They were shocked by it. Was it a treasure or was it something dangerous? "Master, that's the organs of an expert." Suddenly the sword spirit's voices rang out in Jian Chen's head. "What?" Jian Chen was stunned. He stared at the ball of red light in disbelief. He was shocked by how powerful the presence of the organs were, enough to directly kill a Saint Emperor. "Ziying, Qing Suo, what level of strength did this expert possess?" Jian Chen asked. This expert should have been an immortal emperor, but they're not from the immortals' world. They're an expert of the saints' world. The mist here is far more complicated than it seems as well. It's filled with a presence of death. Once it invades the bodies of people, there is a chance that they will die. "This is no simple place," Ziying said. Jian Chen stared at the abnormal red ball of light from 10 kilometers away. He then used all he had to retreat step by step with Yadrium against the invasion of the killing intent and under the great pressure. Fortunately, the killing intent only originated from the organs of a supreme expert and did not possess any active offensive capabilities. At the same time, Jian Chen and Yadrium were very far away, which was why they were able to endure the pressure despite the difficulty, and retreat safely. The killing intent disappeared when the surrounding mist thickened. However, what they had just witnessed before became permanently imprinted in their heads. "What was that?" "I had a very powerful feeling that if I got too close, I would not have been able to leave," Yadrium said with lingering fear. The red light from before was even more terrifying than the Emperor-level vicious spirit. Jian Chen shook his head and pretended he had no idea. Yadrium and Jian Chen continued on their way, but they slowed down a lot. Even though they slowed down, they still ended up trespassing in a few forbidden zones even. It was the same with all of them. Every forbidden region possessed the remains of a supreme expert that radiated with killing intent. The blood never dried, seeming to be demonic. Jian Chen had learned from the sword spirits that the remains all originated from the same expert and had been there for countless years. The essence within them would never disperse and could easily kill Saint Emperors. Fortunately, Jian Chen and Yadrium managed to stop in time whenever they trespassed in one of those regions. They then managed to retreat as quickly as possible every time. This was the only reason why they were perfectly fine right now. Suddenly, the surrounding space began to violently pulse. The surrounding landscape became blurry and Jian Chen discovered that Yadrium was rapidly fading away. "Oh no, space has fallen into disorder again," Jian Chen shivered inside. He had encountered similar situations many times already. The space within the Sea of Despair was very unstable and every time it fell into disorder, it would randomly transport them to another point in the Sea of Despair. However, this time was different than all the times before. He had always been with Yadrium before and had been sent to the same place every time. He saw Yadrium grow blurry this time. This was a sign that they were about to be transported to different places. Jian Chen did not have enough time to think through everything. He immediately grabbed Yadrium by the hand and yanked her over. They relied on the abyssal crystal to guide them through the Sea of Despair and the crystal was with Yadrium. If he ended up separating with her, he would become completely lost since visibility was limited to 100 meters away. He might even end up trapped here forever.
Yadrium's hand was slender and gentle. It was as smooth as jade and carried a certain coolness. However, Jian Chen was in no mood to consider her features. As soon as he pulled Yadrium over, the surrounding space descended into chaos as it pulsed in an extremely unstable manner. The light around Yadrium rippled slightly, but it stabilized very soon. She drew her hand back from Jian Chen without raising a scene. Her heart, which was usually impervious to any desires, wavered slightly. It was no longer as calm as before. There had not been a man who had touched her in her life. The space stabilized and the two of them recovered their visibility as well. However, their faces became extremely ugly because they had appeared in a region without any mist. The area around them was completely clear. The surroundings were desolate as far as the eye could see, and only the sky remained a hazy white, having been enshrouded by the deadly mist. "Oh no, we've probably arrived in the most dangerous region of them all," Jian Chen said under his breath. The two of them had come across multiple regions like this along the way and had gained a rough understanding of them. The greater the danger, the thinner the mist would be. There was not any mist at all in this region. Yadrium also became heavy-hearted. She looked around and found that everything looked the same. Even if she wanted to back out of this place, she would not know where to go. Jian Chen looked around as well, but to his surprise, he failed to find the flesh or blood of the supreme expert. After a moment of silence, Yadrium pulled out the abyssal crystal in a straightforward manner and summoned the abyssal bird to lead the way. The two of them set off by following the bird, but this time, they moved extremely slowly and carefully. After traveling several dozen kilometers, a gigantic, ancient tower appeared before the two of them. The tower was several hundred meters tall and in horrible condition. It was covered with slashes from a sword, and every single slash seemed to be hiding an extremely powerful sword that radiated a terrifying sword chi. Chapter 1345. The Anata Grand Prime. Jian Chen's eyes immediately narrowed the moment he caught sight of the slashes on the ancient tower. He could sense a very powerful comprehension of the way of the sword from them. It was extremely profound, greatly exceeding anything he knew. Jian Chen sensed a whole different, boundless world from them. The slashes were unbelievably powerful. Jian Chen became fixated on the densely packed slashes on the tower. He slowly closed his eyes and attempted to comprehend the way of the sword left behind on the tower. He also walked the way of the sword, except he had only touched the very basics. The comprehension of the way of the sword within the slashes was very intense. If Jian Chen could comprehend even just a little, he felt like his understanding of the way of the sword would skyrocket and his strength would increase. Jian Chen gradually focused his attention on the slashes, but as soon as his mind came in contact with them, his body violently jolted. He immediately paled while blood spurted into the air from his mouth as if he had become heavily injured. He staggered back. The comprehension of the way of the sword hidden within the slashes was just too powerful, far beyond anything that Jian Chen could even touch upon. Not only did Jian Chen fail to comprehend anything as he had wished, but he had also been injured by the slashes. "This is the Anata Tower. Master, you must never try to comprehend the slashes on the tower. These slashes were left behind by the most powerful expert of the Immortals world, the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt. They're filled with a sharp killing intent, and even sword immortals can be heavily injured by them." Zi Ying's voice rang out in his head. "What? The slashes were left behind by the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt?" Jian Chen was completely stunned when he heard that. He knew exactly who the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt was. He was the strongest expert of the Immortals world both in name and reality. Although he remained as an Immortal Exalt, his strength had already surpassed Immortal Exalt in a certain sense. He was even more powerful than the former master of the sword spirits. Jian Chen felt extremely astounded when he learned that slashes from the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt were in the Sea of Despair. Zi Ying sank into his memories and mumbled, "This ancient tower is known as the Anata Tower. It's the fated god artifact of the Anata Grand Prime who stood at the peak of the Saints' world. The Anata Grand Prime was powerful enough to be ranked within the top 3 in terms of strength in the Saints' world, where only the Grand Prime of the warring gods possessed the downright ability to defeat her. In the war back then, the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt of our Immortals world was embroiled in a devastating battle against the Anata Grand Prime in the void of space. In the end, the Anata Grand Prime fled with heavy injuries and her whereabouts became unknown.
I never thought that the Anata Grand Prime had fallen in the end, and his fated artifact would end up here. Jian Chen asked again after his thoughts clicked. Does that mean that the damaged piece of armor I obtained from the treasury of the Tao family belongs to the Anata Grand Prime? Master, I am uncertain about that. The Anata Grand Prime's most famed artifact was the Anata Tower. The tower is extremely powerful. It can devastate a whole region of the cosmos, refine almost everything in the world, or store away a whole section of the world. Even in our immortals' world, the artifact was renowned. We never paid attention to what armor the Anata Grand Prime wore, answered Ziying. Master, do you still remember the remains of the supreme expert you came across earlier? The remains should belong to an expert at the level of immortal emperor. The damaged armor might have come from him. However, the Anata Grand Prime has fallen, and the Anata Tower has been heavily damaged by the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt. The tower should possess all the wealth the Grand Prime managed to accumulate throughout his life. Master, we can try and enter the tower, Qing Sua said with a clear voice. Jian Chen's heart immediately began to beat with excitement. He did not doubt that any item from the collection of a Grand Prime was enough to overshadow everything he had obtained from the Xianhuang microcosm. Jian Chen immediately began to walk toward the Anata Tower. He did not move quickly, taking every step cautiously, fearing that something might happen. What are you doing? You can tell with a single glance that the tower's not simple. It might even be more dangerous than anything we've come across. Yadrium could not help but warn him when she saw Jian Chen start walking toward the tower. This was because it was a very large region without any mist, which meant that the dangers here were far greater than any of the times before. Hallmaster, have a break here. I'll go over there and have a look, Jian Chen said to Yadrium, because he believed the sword spirits. Yadrium watched Jian Chen grow further away. She gritted her teeth and followed along, but she was also very careful. She had already made up her mind to use the weapon of the sea goddess at any moment. Suddenly, the Anata Tower shone with a hazy, azure light when Jian Chen was over a dozen kilometers away. A terrifying pulse immediately expanded from the tower, causing the surroundings to tremble. Jian Chen and Yadrium revealed different expressions. They felt fear from the pulse as the very depths of their souls trembled. Oh no, the artifact spirit of the Anata Tower has not dispersed yet. Master, retreat. The sword spirit's voice rang through Jian Chen's head in a panic. Afterward, the sword spirits fell silent, hiding themselves well. They were heavily injured right now and did not possess their might from before. They were not the opponents of the artifact spirit in the tower. Retreat! Jian Chen cried out before falling back with Yadrium as quickly as they could. The Anata Tower gently trembled as the azure light grew brighter and brighter. The terrifying pulse affected the surroundings, causing the space around it to violently distort and the mist in the air to churn wildly. At the same time, the slashes on the tower began to shine with dazzling light. At that moment, all the slashes seemed to have roused. Every single slash seemed to transform, projecting a powerful transparent sword that revolved around the tower. It began to suppress the structure. The Anata Tower was unable to overpower the slashes, so its glow gradually dimmed. In the end, it fell silent again. It stood there quietly just like any other dilapidated tower. The Nirvanic Immortal Exalt and Former Master were the two great sword gods of the Immortals world, but the Nirvanic Sword Immortal's accomplishments in the way of the sword surpassed Former Master. The slashes he's left on the Anata Tower are actually seals, and every single slash has given birth to its own spirit, Ziying said emotionally as he observed the slashes on the tower from afar. The artifact spirit in the Anata Tower has not dispersed yet, but it's heavily injured just like us. At the same time, it's been suppressed by the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt seal, preventing it from recovering. Master, once you reach the 7th layer of the chaotic body, you should be able to approach the Anata Tower, said Qing Sua. The 7th layer? Jian Chen became bitter inside. He had only just reached the 4th layer of the chaotic body, and breaking through would only become more difficult. It was not an easy feat to reach the 7th layer. Jian Chen and Yadrium began to travel in a direction opposite of the Anata Tower. They traversed several hundred kilometers by foot before finally leaving the forbidden region. Afterward, Yadrium summoned the abyssal bird and continued on their way after detouring around the region where the Anata Tower was. This part of the journey was much more peaceful. Jian Chen and Yadrium came across fewer and fewer forbidden regions, and the vicious spirits that attacked them gradually vanished.
The only problem was the distortions of space they came across several times, which sent them to random locations in the Sea of Despair and forced them to travel much more than needed. A blue light finally appeared before them, less than 100 meters in the mist after walking for so long. A huge, majestic divine hall appeared before them. The entire structure shone with a resplendent blue light, which glimmered like crystal. The hall slowly drifted through the Sea of Despair. The divine hall was entirely constructed from abyssal crystal. Abyssal crystal was something that originated from the Sea of Despair, so the divine hall, which was completely constructed from it, could avoid a lot of the dangers present in the Sea of Despair. "This is Her Majesty's divine hall. We've finally found it," Yadrium said with a trembling voice as she looked at the blue divine hall in excitement. "Finally!" Jian Chen smiled triumphantly. Chapter 1346. Sword Forging, 1. No one knew how large the Sea of Despair was. It had always been shrouded by mist even in ancient times. The sea goddess abyssal crystal divine hall floated aimlessly through the Sea of Despair. It moved at all times, making it impossible for anyone to find it, including Origin Realm experts. The only method was to use an abyssal crystal as a guide. Only then could someone find the correct location. Yadrium excitedly flew up the steep stairs as Jian Chen followed close behind her. They made their way to the front entrance step by step. The door of the divine hall was tightly closed and the entire structure hid an extremely powerful energy. Before this energy, even Jian Chen and Yadrium shivered. Yadrium took out the abyssal crystal and performed several hand seals. She used a secret technique to activate the energy within the abyssal crystal. A blue pillar of light appeared from the crystal, and under Yadrium's control, it formed an extremely profound inscription, which then struck the main entrance with lightning-like speed. Immediately, the door of the divine hall began to shine with a blue light. The powerful energy sleeping within seemed to have awakened, and with a series of creaks, the door slowly opened. Not only was the abyssal crystal the guide to finding the divine hall, but it was also the key to the divine hall as well. However, a corresponding secret technique was needed. An icy and desolate presence immediately began to radiate out of the divine hall, causing Jian Chen and Yadrium to shiver inside. They felt like they had arrived in the ancient times. The divine hall had drifted through the Sea of Despair for several hundreds of thousands of years, even reaching over 1,000,000. It had never been opened the entire time it had drifted, so the residual presence inside was extremely ancient. The divine hall was empty and silent. An invisible pressure permeated the entire building. The door closed automatically after Jian Chen and Yadrium entered the divine hall. Afterward, the sea goddess' familiar voice rang out. "You've finally arrived safely in my divine hall. Jian Chen, I'll send you to the control center of the divine hall and give you partial control. Take the divine hall and leave the Sea of Despair with Yadrium," the sea goddess said with excitement that she struggled to hide. There was not long before she would be able to bask in the sun once again. An invisible force gathered and surrounded Jian Chen. The force was gentle, but it was also powerful to the point that Jian Chen could not resist. With a flash of blue light, Jian Chen was sent away by the force. He entered the control center and began to refine the divine hall. "Yadrium, you are injured. Jian Chen needs a few days to refine the divine hall, so use this time to heal," the sea goddess said to Yadrium. Her figure had not appeared, so her voice originated from the surroundings. "Yes, Your Majesty," Yadrium replied politely before sitting down on the spot. She began to work on recovering. In the Sea of Despair, she and Jian Chen had suffered injuries on different levels. Jian Chen possessed the toughness and recovery rate of the chaotic body, so he was able to recover without requiring much time after becoming injured. Yadrium was not in possession of such a powerful body. Although she had ingested quite a lot of medicine, there were still signs of injuries hidden within her body. In the blink of an eye, a few days passed. Yadrium made a full recovery within those days and returned to her peak condition while Jian Chen had successfully refined the divine hall. He had left the control center and had appeared before Yadrium. Jian Chen only gained partial control over the divine hall. The true master of the divine hall was still the sea goddess, but after he had gained partial control, he had obtained an even clearer understanding of the power of the divine hall.
He was as insignificant as an ant before the divine hall. The power hidden within was enough to easily wipe out Saint Emperors. Afterward, Jian Chen and Yadrium worked together to pilot the divine hall. They hurried off in another direction, guided by the abyssal crystal. The journey back was far less complicated than when they made their way to the divine hall. Not only did Jian Chen and Yadrium manage to avoid many of the dangers in the Sea of Despair, they were even able to resist the distortions of space with the divine hall. They had no need to worry about being transported to an unknown location due to the distortions, throwing them off course. Their primary reason for entering the Sea of Despair this time was to bring out the soul of the sea goddess and prepare for her resurrection. Without the abyssal crystal, even the sea goddess would find it very difficult to make it out of the Sea of Despair. After all, she was no longer in possession of her peak strength. She was just a soul now, unable to use many of her abilities or secret techniques. The divine hall did not fly very quickly, but since it could repel the distortions of space, they managed to avoid a lot of detours. It only took around a dozen days before they made it out of the Sea of Despair, returning to the sea realm. It was several-fold shorter than the amount of time it had taken them to reach the divine hall. "Your Majesty, what should we do next?" Jian Chen asked. Now that the entirety of the sea goddess soul had left the Sea of Despair, they could resurrect her. "My resurrection requires the activation of the 99 spirit springs in the sea realm. The chi from the springs will nourish the vitality of my body, allowing my soul to fuse perfectly with it. There must be no disruptions during the process, or everything we've done will be useless," said the sea goddess. "Your Majesty, the Hall Masters of the Serpent God Hall and Heaven Spirit Hall have lusted over your legacy for a very long time. When your Majesty undergoes resurrection, the two Hall Masters are likely to come to disrupt the process. They are experts who have been emperors for a very long time. We obviously do not fear them in an open fight, but I fear that they will disrupt the process without considering the consequences. That will be very difficult for us to stop," Jian Chen said with some worry. "I've already made many preparations for Her Majesty's resurrection. Coupled with Her Majesty's weapon and divine hall, stopping them will not be difficult," said Yadrium. "Yadrium, can I ask how confident you are at stopping the two Hall Masters? They possess powerful secret techniques after all," Jian Chen asked. Yadrium thought about it silently before responding. "I am around 80% confident that I can, and 90% if I have Her Majesty's divine hall. It's just a pity that the resurrection cannot be held in the divine hall, or there would be no problem even if there were several more opponents." Jian Chen fell silent and sank into his thoughts. "Jian Chen, do you have any good ideas to successfully resurrect me?" the sea goddess asked hopefully. They had reached a crucial stage for her resurrection. She did not wish for everything to fail here and waste everything they had already accomplished. "Your Majesty, if you can give me half a year to forge my swords, I am confident I can stop the two Hall Masters or even kill them. Then, Your Majesty's resurrection will be successful," Jian Chen said, full of confidence. Chapter 1347. Sword Forging. 2. Forge swords? What swords do you want to forge? How are they so powerful that they can kill two emperors? Are you going to be training some powerful secret technique instead? Yadrium glanced over and asked out of curiosity. She had gained a complete understanding of Jian Chen's strength during their time together in the Sea of Despair. She assumed that he possessed some powerful treasure, but his battle prowess was only at the level of a standard Saint Emperor. He would find it difficult to put up a fight against experts who had become Saint Emperors a very long time ago. This was because the Hall Master of the Serpent God Hall possessed powerful secret techniques, more than just one of them. After observing Jian Chen, she understood that the power he used was very great, but he had never used a secret technique. Jian Chen shook his head and said, "I'm not going to train some powerful secret technique. I will be forging weapons that suit me." Yadrium became even more curious. She looked at Jian Chen in surprise, as if she no longer knew him. It was a common fact that all the humans of the Tian-Yuan continent practiced Saint Force and would condense their own Saint weapons from it. She had never seen anyone become an exception to that fact in all these years, let alone hear that an expert needed to forge their weapons. Even the ruler armaments of Saint Rulers, king armaments of Saint Kings, and emperor armaments of Saint Emperors were all condensed from Saint Force by their previous owners. They were a materialization of energy, which made them even tougher than steel.
Jian Chen, we'll wait half a year since you're so confident. Reconstructing my body is very urgent, but so many years have passed already. Just another half a year is nothing. The sea goddess agreed to Jian Chen's suggestion. Clearly, she did not wish to see anything happen to the resurrection process and ruin everything they had done so far. Jian Chen shrank the divine hall to the size of a fist and gave it to Yadrium so that she could bring it back to the sea goddess hall. Afterward, he returned to the turtle clan by himself. He spoke to the elders before immediately entering seclusion. At the same time, Tai Ta entered seclusion as well. Jian Chen had given him a 5th grade violet cloud peach and a few immortal tier heavenly resources. He planned on using the heavenly resources to properly increase his strength. After all, he was the same as Jian Chen. He possessed battle prowess on the level of Saint Emperors, but his cultivation still dwelled on the level of Saint Kings. The Turtle Clan was as prominent as the midday sun in the sea realm now. Guests visited them from everywhere, and they were all extremely polite. Even the people from some of the most powerful clans dared not to act snobbishly when they paid a visit to the Turtle Clan, so Jian Chen and Tai Ta did not need to worry about the safety of the clan. They entered seclusion at ease and cut off all contact from the outside world. They would not emerge until they had accomplished what they were aiming for. Deep underground in a gloomy room, a fist-sized golden tower hovered in the air with a hazy glow. Jian Chen sat within a majestic hall within the artifact space as he communicated with the sword spirits. Master, there are 2 main steps to forging the swords. These 2 steps possess the utmost importance to forging anything. The first step is to melt the materials by using your own settling flames. However, the grade of the materials is closely tied to the strength of the flames. If the materials are too high of a grade and the flames are too weak, it's impossible to melt the materials, thus, making it impossible to continue forging them. The second step determines whether the forging of a sword is successful or not. They need to be inscribed with sword inscriptions. The quality of an immortal sword is not only related to the materials it's forged from, but also the power of the inscriptions. The more powerful the sword is, the more powerful its inscriptions are. Jian Chen immediately found the matter to be troublesome after hearing that. He knew that it would be difficult to forge the azulate swords, but he had never imagined it would be so complicated. He knew nothing about settling flames or sword inscriptions. His agreement of half a year with the sea goddess had been based off of what the sword spirits had told him to say. It seemed like he had a lot to learn if he wanted to forge the azulate swords. Half a year might not be enough time. Master, you don't need to worry so much. Since we said that you only need half a year to forge the swords, you will definitely be able to do it in that time frame. The settling flames are divided into 3 major levels, which are the settling triflames, settling hexaflames, and settling novaflames. The triflames are the weakest and can only melt materials that are no higher than the immortal tier. However, these settling flames are produced by circulating and burning the energy in the body with the use of a secret technique. We will be passing this secret technique to Master. With Master's talent, you should be able to grasp it very quickly, and with Master's chaotic force, the flames produced will definitely be chaotic flames. Even though they're not true chaotic flames, they're much more powerful than settling flames of the same level. They will be able to melt immortal tier materials. Jian Chen gained somewhat of an understanding of forging the swords with that explanation. Creating the chaotic flames was akin to burning the chaotic force within him, which would be consumed very quickly. Jian Chen had only just reached the 4th layer, so his chaotic Niden was still the size of a soybean. He did not have a lot of chaotic force, not enough to gain a grasp over chaotic flames. Jian Chen grabbed a 5th grade violet cloud peach from his space ring and consumed it without any hesitation. It turned into vast energy that expanded throughout Jian Chen's body. The amount of energy was extremely shocking, but it was pure and gentle, making absorption very easy, and it would not cause any problems for his body, such as exploding from too much energy. Jian Chen began to circulate his energy along a certain path as he began to refine the vast amounts of energy within the peach. A 5th grade violet cloud peach could increase his cultivation by 2,500 years. This period of time was calculated according to the time of higher worlds, so on the Tianyuan continent, it was enough to replace 10,000 years of cultivation by a person or even more than that. Of course, talent played a factor in regards to the time period as well. Every single person possessed a different amount of talent, which was why they would spend different amounts of time at similar cultivation levels. If the peach was consumed by a genius, It would probably only be equivalent to 1,000 years of cultivation or just a few centuries. The vast energy had already formed a swirl in Jian Chen's dantian. He was currently refining and absorbing the energy as quickly as he could. His soybean-sized chaotic Niden seemed to have become a bottomless lake. As the vast amounts of energy poured in, nothing evident seemed to happen. It was growing at an extremely gradual rate. 7 days later, the energy from the peach completely disappeared, having all been absorbed by Jian Chen with nothing left. The 5th-grade peach had increased his chaotic Niden by an inch in diameter. It was just slightly smaller than a dove's egg now. Jian Chen observed his chaotic Niden and could not help but feel rather disappointed. The effects of the peach were not as significant as he had imagined. The amount of energy he needed for cultivation had increased by several-fold yet again after reaching the 4th layer of the chaotic body. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.